Maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right. But I have my doubts, yeah. So during the day, well, I design machines of war that scream through the sky. 'Cause I, for one, I like to go to bed free at night, under these stars and stripes. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts. And I have my doubts that we're making back out. Yes, I have my doubts. But they'll wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out. And I don't understand. So roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts. And I have my doubts that we're making back out. And I have my doubts. So I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts. And I have my doubts that we're making back up. Yes, I have my doubts. So we're all messed up and out of touch. Let's text someone who's in the other room. So don't wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. Well, the things I think, well, I lie awake and contemplate at night. Wearing me out.
Good afternoon. Been another day of craziness I've seen in the news. No lack of that on this planet, that's for sure. Let me get caught up to Full Spectrum's video and get that played. There it is. Alrighty, here is Full Spectrum Survival's report from this morning. Oh, and yeah, I decided early on, it kind of gave me a fit too, as far as the screen loading in on my side. So that's why I just called it early and replaced the stream key and refreshed everything, restarted my software. So tried to nip it in the bud. Adam the Woo would have been proud of that. Anyway, Full Spectrum Survival.
Welcome to Full Spectrum Survival's World News Update, bringing you the news that you need to know. Let's begin. claiming that the international community of the wealthy and the elite have a responsibility to protect the people of Venezuela and to respond urgently to its economic and humanitarian crisis. The potentially corrupt and powerful economic force of Goldman Sachs has confirmed on Tuesday that it bought Venezuelan bonds, an action that was quickly flayed by the opposition to the nation's ruling force of Maduro, in which they say that Goldman Sachs financed the embattled government, which is right now facing prolonged unrest and anti-government discontent that calls for change by forced removal within the nation. Reports warn that Germany may soon ally with other nations that have begun expressing malcontent toward the United States for its daring to control the military defensive spending and international propaganda campaigns of the countries that directly rely on the USD for their own economies and the alliance of NATO for their defense, following overt claims by the U.S. president and backed by a small circle of dependents that say Germany and others in their alignment must change in order to receive the benefit of such alliances and protection. Analysts warn that the verbiage and force being wielded by the current U.S. administration is taking an us versus them stance toward geopolitical tension, rather than the mutual gain stance that grew out of the world wars, a fact that could see a shift in sentiment toward the United States by hundreds of millions of citizens of these other countries when they feel that they can get by without the growing rule and leadership of the United States government and its military. The danger, analysts warn, is not this year, but a shift in sentiment that will last decades and could usher in a great shift in power economically and geopolitically if nations that the U.S. relies on now for their strategic position and partnership suddenly shift their alliance toward the growing anti-Western might of Russia, China, and Iran. Claiming responsibility for the attacks on Tuesday and proving that once a government undergoes a collapse, the rebuilding process will take decades before relative peace can once again be obtained, the Islamic State detonated 2 separate explosive attacks in the Iraqi capital. And to wrap things up, watchers are looking for secondary events following the release of a large filament or an arc of electrical plasma from the sun. We expect a test of a nuclear weapon or the unveiling of an ICBM capable of reaching North America from North Korea in the coming weeks. Calls for the revocation of protesting permits shows the fallacy of making protesting legal only when allowed by the government, and worldwide governments are being forced to take sides as a new Cold War ignites across the world. And that wraps up this episode of the World News Update. Check back tomorrow for more news that the aware need the most. This week's World News Update is brought to you by Greennovative.com. Recharge your batteries when solar and wind units fail. The G-Mag can charge over 200 batteries on a single diode by just adding salt and water. Don't rely on one source of energy when the grid fails. Get the G-Mag to keep your operations running anytime, anywhere, and in any weather. Visit Greennovative.com and use the code FSS10 to receive a discount today. And MyTac.net. Don't trust your life to anything less than soldier-selected items. Both veteran-owned and operated, MyTac.net houses items that are proven to save your life on the battlefield and in the city. Visit MyTac.net, that is mi-tac.net, and stock up on your tactical, survival, and preparedness needs.
Alrighty, let's see here. Up next, suspicious observers. Yikes, Jason had a marathon today. Yeah, I'm saying. But none of them are like over 20 minutes or nothing, or even 20 minutes. I think his longest one, see, that's 15. Yep, longest is 15. So, wow. He went all crazy today. Alright, next up is Suspicious Observers. This morning's episode is titled Filament Erupts, Moon-Tipped, and Weather.
Good morning, folks. We need to focus on the sun today, so we're going to flip-flop the normal topical coverage and begin at windy.com. We'll switch back tomorrow. All tools are showing, overlays on the right, timestamps on the bottom. Rain follows the low pressure, and south of Mexico, that is a tropical storm forming. Couple concerns in the southern states as well. Hopefully you can use this tool wherever you live in the world. Again, that is windy.com. You can check all major forecast models running at least a few days ahead, and some of them a bit more. Bangladesh, Cyclone Mora. Here's some footage, and we're seeing tens of thousands of people evacuated. with good reason. 75-mile-an-hour winds gusting even higher at times. Up next, we're going to Enceladus, where orientation marks in the ice are telling NASA that the moon flipped over. Its so-called tiger stripes are not at all where the experts believe they must have formed. Okay, now let's get to the space weather. SpaceWeatherNews.com. Looking at the last 24 hours on our star reveals the plasma filament attached to the caboose of the central coronal hole lifted, erupted, and left a solar tsunami in its wake. Watching in 304 angstroms gives us the best perspective of the breadth of plasma that lifted from the sun. The plasma filament was in an Earth-facing position and basically lifted mostly straight up, perhaps a bit to the side on the left as it bulges out. But when we come to the coronagraphs, we see almost nothing. Perhaps there is a bit coming out the left side at the end, but actually that's not matching up on time, and indeed, that one is the result of the incoming active region's umbral field snapping and letting loose a small CME at Jupiter. That means that either this much larger filament eruption, which happened first, either somehow did not produce a CME, or the CME is hiding behind the central blocking disk and is coming right this way. Then again, if you watch closely, the data is cut and possibly edited, as always happens with SOHO data feeds. Sad but true. We'll keep watching and have eyes open for the coronal hole stream to arrive from the central opening as well, should intensify the solar wind in the coming days. And as we close today, it's just going to focus on those solar images and coronagraphs. I highly doubt a CME could just hide behind the blocking disk like that, but even more doubtful that such a filament eruption wouldn't produce a visible CME. Enjoy the confusion. Oh, and FYI, if you heard that somehow CERN is causing scary solar wind readings, well, they are happening around the clock, including times like 2 a.m., 10 p.m. They were ongoing through the off-season. They recommissioned beams this month and are now doing few proton batches. And when they get up to billion particle collisions in a few weeks, they still won't be able to touch a pacemaker 100 yards outside the building. Website members at suspiciousobservers.org have some new Deeper Look episodes. We'll do this all again tomorrow, right here, but right now it's 5:20 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
Alrighty, and here's a tip for the sun. Don't stare at it, you'll go blind. So, I just overheard that once. Don't know if it's true. Let's see. One of these days I figured I would test it. And, just stare at the sun for like 3 hours. See what happens. Alright, up next, the Daily Woo. Visiting Silence of the Lambs house. That sounds pleasant. Hitchcock would be proud.
Is this safe to drive around and through and under? If I wake up in a few days with two heads, I know what's to blame. Price per gallon in this neck of the woods, $2.65 a gallon. Welcome everyone, Adam. Woo here. That might not be the best example for a station though, because it was full service. They come out, pump your gas at an influctuated rate. I thought it was self-serve when I pulled up, but the guy assured me, no, I got this, man. I got this. It's my second channel, daily vlog channel. It's the Daily Woo. Currently heading upward through the state of Pennsylvania, northbound. The skies have opened up. It's now starting to rain. Just a little bit, a light mist. Nothing, well, now that I say that, it's coming down a little harder. Here in the town of Perryopolis, they have a Dairy Queen. That is not uncommon for small communities. However, this one is an old school one. Look at that neon vintage sign up there. Heck yeah. That's awesome. This feed store is no longer in business. Agway, Farm, Home, and Garden. But it's a pretty impressive looking structure. And look at the mural painted on the front bricks. Pretty cool. The downtown area is very quaint. It's not a town square, it's a town circle. Check out that drugstore. And right in the middle there, the American flag. I like this little area. But about a mile outside town is a home that is very horrifying, and to get there, have to cross over this very narrow, oh my gosh. Holy cow, what is happening right now? This is moderately terrifying. I don't know if anything will top the experience of driving a heavy RV over a rickety bridge. Wait a second. Mail truck? Package delivery for Buffalo Bill here in the village of Layton. These triple train tracks look awfully familiar. That's because the character, his home, where unspeakable things from Silence of the Lambs happened in the basement. The house is right there. In fact, it is absolutely incredible to me that past the newer RV is the old, decrepit RV, more than 20 years old, screen used in the film. If you watch that clip of the reveal of the exteriors, it starts in this position. The camera shifts with some very ominous music. You see this brick barn, and then the ultimate horror house. Shunka gong gong, gong 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 gong. Hello, Carice. This is blowing my mind. Look at that, it's still here. It's still here, that bus RV-ish looking thing. Wow. And who knew, on the same property, right next to Buffalo Bill's home, was a train. There's a train. You don't see that. You don't see that in the Jodie Foster clips. But right in there. Goodness gracious. It's a pretty scary film. Wow. I am fairly confident the location scout picked this spot because of the triple train tracks. And the owners of this home, who lived there for many, many, many years, recently sold it about a year ago. And the person who now owns it, they will not come out and say who it is, but it is an ultimate horror fan. I wonder who now owns the house, bought it specifically because it was used in that movie. I'm curious, I wonder who it could possibly be. Pretty incredible though. That's the driveway where she would have parked her car. This is the side angle. If for some crazy reason a larger than normal moth were to fly into my window right now and perch itself right there on the ledge, I'd probably soil myself. That's the basement. Right down there, there's a window to the basement. Oh my goodness. Unspeakable doings happened down in those nether regions. And it is seriously tucked away back in here. You have to go over that crazy bridge to even get to it. They call it a village, and I understand why, because it's easier to walk around there than it is to drive. There's a little church, a couple businesses, but the roads are so narrow, I couldn't even get the RV back into it. I cannot get over this. I don't know what the weight limit is on this thing, but oh man, I'm getting like the weirdest sensation, just feeling like it's gonna tumble into the river. And then you go into this even more creepy, ominous tunnel. Goodness gracious. That whole experience was slightly horrifying. It's all right, Bigfoot. You're safe and sound now, back on the interstate, passing. What is this? Arnold City? That's right. Come on here, come on. An old tobacco ad there on the side of the wall. Mail pouch. Treat yourself to the best. What if that company's still around? The name of this place is Monison. You can see it written up there on the wall. Look at this abandoned health club over here on the left. And there is a woodpecker up there on that ledge. When it comes to having an old school vibe, this place takes the cake. There's the old movie theater. Plenty of murals and advertisements on the walls. This place is incredible. And down at the bottom of this hill is an attraction called Castle Blood. It is currently not open. I think they're only open in the Halloween season, but they leave up their decorations all year, including this gargoyle who is looming over the ledge. I can imagine that place is a heck of a good time during the month of October. Wait a second! Tim Tracker! As I started crossing this bridge, I noticed the sign stating the name of it was Stan the Man Musial Bridge. He must have grew up or lived around here. That's the only conclusion I can come up with. Slowly making my way through Donora now. And many years ago, something happened here that could easily be turned into the plot of a horror film. And it's not every day you see a promotion for Montgomery Ward. That's a rarity. In 1948, these very streets and businesses were completely covered in a fog. In October of that year, a very heavy fog blanketed this entire valley. And as the days passed, it became even more thick, leaving 20 people dead and thousands ill. And it wasn't until Halloween Day, look at that, Halloween Day, that the Donora Zinc Works finally shut down its furnaces, just hours before the rain finally dispersed the deadly smog. I'm telling you, it's something out of a John Carpenter movie. He probably took inspiration from that event. Right next to this abandoned shoe store, they have a photo in the window stating clean air started here. I'm not sure if they're trying to turn the message of the town or maybe a sarcasm. I can't really decide. In fact, it looks like this business, titled the Smog Central, has also closed over the years. Some paintings drawn on these windows, this little girl getting infected with the smog, and this dragon, which I think they have nicknamed that event. They call it the Dragon. And no loitering here in this town. Not because they don't want you just hanging around disturbing the peace, but because there's a deadly fog, or there was half a century ago in this street. This museum, which just so happens to be closed today, sells t-shirts for $5, and the window has been shattered. The revenge of the fog lingers on.
The fog cannot be stopped.
Our eyes have feasted upon the horrors of many a things today, and I must commend you on your steadfast viewership for not shying away from the scariness that was upon your either computer screen or your smartphone screen, or however you watch these daily vlogs. I have to say, you, sir, ma'am, children, have done it. But let's not forget not only the story of the fog, but also the story of the basement inside, the terrifying nether regions down there in the bottom section of the Silence of the Lamb home. Well, pluralize lambs. One lamb. What's scarier? One lamb or a bunch of lambs that are being silent? I wonder if actually, it'd probably be more horrifying if they were making noise. Either way, that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to say. Let us not forget, let's not ignore, there is something scarier than all things that were witnessed so far today. I hope he's not around. I hope he's not here. Please! Vlog? I sense him. I sense him! Oh, with arms now, with arms wide open, vlog over the horror! The horror!
Wow. All right, the first one from Jay Snip is personal spending growth tumbles to 7th-month low after dramatic revisions.
Ooh, double revision. Look in my eyes. I got a double revision. Yeah, thanks, Zerohead. You got another great one for me. And who's your best pal that's always kept up with the revision bullcrap? Great numbers come out. The economy rose today by 17%. Jobless numbers today were down the lowest they've ever been. Unemployment's down to 4%. Month or two later, holy crap, revision of epic failness. Whoa. And Jason 4 comes out, as he always does, and says, hey guys, remember last month or the month? Hey, listen, they revised it. They revised it. Here, check this out, right? So guess what? I'm doing it again, like I always do. And this is, as you'll see from what they're going to say here about the Fed, the Fed looks at the soft data. And the soft data says it's time for a rate hike in June. We're going to go with the rate hike. But this data is the data that they look at. And it's worse than terrible. Are we about to hear a kind of a revision from the Fed? We may not. We're not going to rate hike June. Actually, we've changed our mind. Wonder how the market would think about that. Anyways, personal spending, right? Personal spending growth tumbles to 7-month lows after dramatic revisions. Wow, who would have thought? Revision, where'd the revisions come from? Man, that's not good. I can't pump up stocks on that noise. Come on, man. Then again, we can. Bad news, stocks rally. Good news, stocks rally. No news, stocks rally. Except today they did end, well, which is yesterday, they did end down. Again, 7 days winning streak. Oh, I've dropped down again. Well, I guess the Fed took its hand off the gas pedal for a second, split second, and it came down. Having weakened to unchanged for the last 2 months, April saw personal spending rise 0.4% month over month, as expected, and personal income rise 0.4% month over month, as expected. However, year-over-year growth in spending, plus 4.3%, weakest since 2016 September, and income, plus 3.6%, weakest since January 2017, both signaled a rolling over of the post-Trump exuberance, just in time for another rate hike by the Fed. Personal income, year-over-year, personal spending. Let's see what we got here. It says, but this is not what the Fed nor Trump was hoping for. Spending and incomes are still rising, though. And the revisions sent the savings rate soaring off crash lows. Before and after. So let's take a little peek at this little chart here. Original and revised savings rate. So the savings rate originals red, savings rate revised black. So, people are saving, so everything's looking good. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, no, they're not. Actually, this is a lot worse than we thought it was. And this is actually very flat now. Not this, trend. The trend shows it's going to keep going up. Saving is great. So here's why. Huge downgrade revisions to income and spending was re-engineered higher. Revisions to personal income and spending. The red one, revisions to personal income, and the green one, revisions to personal spending. So we're not saving as much as we were told, and they're spending more, right? Positive number, negative number. We're spending a lot more all of a sudden as we entered March. Again, revision to personal income, revision to personal spending. Wow. So anyways, it says, this is a quick one. And this is the economic data that the Fed uses to judge whether rate hikes are appropriate. More noise, less signal. Wonder what the Fed's going to do. Again, if they raise rates again, in their mindset, we're going to make decisions to push this market down. We're going to collapse this market later in the year. Or maybe it's next year, whatever. I'll tell you again, though, I think whatever the hell's going to happen is going to happen later this year. and they'll be partially to blame. Remember, the Fed is supposed to look at thermometers, right, and in advance, okay, that market is hot, we need to change monetary policy to accommodate for that. That market's too hot, we don't want it to overheat. Or it's not hot at all, it's very cold. Let's monetary policy to bump that up a bit. And usually it's interest rates. But it's an after, or it's a before effect. So we're going to do this in advance because we can see this little data telling us something. Let's get on it now. Now what they're doing is let's raise the rates and then look back later. See how that worked out. And tell everybody, but we're looking at data and that's why we're doing this. Well, this data was just revised. This data says sucky. Okay? Will they still rise? Are we going to hear another, we decide we're going to hold off. This report came out with the revision. And then what? Then the Fed's credibility is done. As I said before, if they don't follow through with everything they've said that they're going to do this year, their credibility is finished. It's already pretty much on the last string. Many people said, their credibility is already gone anyways. I agree. But for everybody else, I think this would be it. Okay, you said you were going to do this. Everything was fine. Now you're saying they're not. You're not going to raise, And already the percentage of absolute rate hike, 99% sure the market, everybody that we surveyed, has come down quite a bit in recent days. They may not hike, even though they're saying they still would like to. Remains to be seen. Take care.
Alrighty, and his next one is titled Banco's Popular Bonds Plunges Balance Sheet Chaos Revealed in Potential Forced Sale. Yeah, whatever all that means.
And I guess I just can't help myself today. I can't help it. News, got some news, got to tell the people. 4 videos, 5 videos, doesn't matter. But at least 2 of my videos were very, very short. Super short. Little bonus for you because I love you. Wolf Richter, wolfstreet.com. You remember the other day I was mentioning a little problem in Spain? One of their banks, has a big problem. That bank, wasn't it Banco Popular? Weren't we just talking about that? Banco Popular's Coco bonds plunge as balance sheet chaos revealed in potential forced sale. I'll say it again. Banks in the word balance sheet is always followed by an additional phrase. Cooked the books. Banks, balance sheet, cook the books. Okay? So get ready for this. This sale process is atypical, as the seller itself cannot, at this point, make a rough calculation of what the value of the entity is. And if they can't, neither can we. The books have been cooked so bad, we don't know what the hell we're looking at. We can't even put a place of value. We don't know what real assets are, liabilities. We have no idea. This is unbelievable. Oh, wait a minute. Did I just say unbelievable? Maybe for the average person. For you guys and myself, this ain't unbelievable. This is the stuff I read you all the time. This is normal. Okay? Normal. The current share price of Spain's 6th largest bank, Banco Popular, at 67 cents currently, is just pennies above its lowest point ever, according to analysts at 20 different investment banks consulted by Bloomberg. The objective value of those shares could be anything from $1.50 to 25 cents. There's good reason for this uncertainty. Popular's books are filled with impaired real estate assets. That to me says junk. Toxic, foreclosed junk. That's what it tells me, but I'm going to use their words here. Impaired real estate assets that date back to before the collapse of Spain's gargantuan real estate bubble. They are now in varying stages of decomposition, and the prices at which they've been valued on the bank's books appear to have little relation with today's reality. It now turns out that not even Popular's management knows what's really going on Popular's books. So anybody out there by chance in Spain and you have a mortgage you're about to be foreclosed on, or they've just served you or something, you're going to be foreclosed, fight it. Fight it. Hire a lawyer and fight it. You may find they can't even find the entry in their accounting. I mean, we have no idea. We have no legal standing because we have nothing here. worth a shot. Better than just packing your bags and walking and letting them take it. But anyways, so again, it now turns out that not even Popular's management knows what's really going on in their books. Representatives of Banco Santander and majority state-owned Bankia, the two banks studying Popular's books to decide whether or not to submit a binding offer for the bank before the deadline of June 10th, which, as you know now, you're seeing this is about 11 days away from now, are having serious difficulties trying to understand Popular's accounts, according to Spain's financial daily Expansión. Although there is total collaboration from the struggling entity, Popular's management has not yet completed its own review of the impaired assets on the bank's balance sheets, and therefore cannot offer a precise valuation of the bank. Quote, a bank sells out of necessity, not voluntarily, said a senior official of one of the entities that is carefully analyzing Popular accounts. The problem, he adds, is that this sales process is atypical, as the seller itself cannot, at this point, make a rough calculation of what the value of the entity is, and if they can't, well, neither can we. Oh, guys, you need to treat it as a time bomb. You've got 11 days and counting. This heightened uncertainty has apparently exacerbated the run on the bank's deposits, as well as triggering further declines in Popular's contingent convertible bonds, the infamous COCO bonds. COCOs have no maturity date and are designed to be bailed in before taxpayers get to foot the bill. Thus, they're a measure of how likely investors think a bail-in is. Popular has two batches of COCOs, not to be confused with Coca-Cola or cocoa, like you're making some hot cocoa. This is not that. You don't want that. You're going to want Coca-Cola or hot cocoa, even the most garbagey kind you can get your hand on, before you want some of these. Those issued in October 2013 are currently trading at 70 cents on the euro. That's below the previous lowest level registered in February last year, when Deutsche Bank's troubles sparked a broad, albeit short-lived, sell-off of COCOs across Europe's financial markets. The second issuance from 2015 is in even worse dire straits, trading at 68 cents on the euro. The difference between the two positions is mainly due to the fact that the bank chose to raise the capital threshold at which the bonds would be bailed in from 5.125% for the first issuance to 7% for the second issuance. In other words, if Popular's capital ratio, which, according to its latest results, is just above the ECB's minimal threshold, falls below 7%, the bank won't make the coupon payment on the second batch of bonds. In such an event, investors would end up being stuck with bonds that have plunged in value and pay no coupon. Then, if regulators deem that the bank is failing, the COCOs get bailed in, either by getting converted into increasingly worthless shares or by getting canceled altogether. So far, no bank has defaulted on their COCO bonds, but that could be about to change according to Expansión. The current levels of Popular's COCOs imply that investors believe there is a very real possibility that Popular will end up converting the bonds into shares. At the height of Deutsche's COCO crisis, when investors feared that the capital threshold would be breached, the bonds fell to 69 cents on the euro, at the time the lowest point for any major financial institution. Popular's second batch of COCOs just crossed that line. To reassure spooked investors, an official spokesperson of the bank has stated that the payment of the next scheduled coupon in June, it's not at risk. Deutsche Bank has already shown that this sort of situation can be turned around, and its COCOs have recovered. But Deutsche Bank was still able to raise new capital, a luxury that Popular no longer has. According to Expansión, some of Popular's investors have already begun to calculate how their accounts would be affected if, as feared, the COCO bonds were converted into shares. If that were to happen, it could send a very dangerous signal to the markets. Despite all the restructuring, forced mergers and acquisitions, and the €300 billion taxpayer-funded bailout of the country's savings banks, if you include all the government guarantees, Spain's banking system is not nearly as fixed as the authorities, both political and monetary, claim. More to the point, some investors may even begin wondering if Popular is the only bank in Spain to have massively inflated the value of the so-called assets on its books. Jason, for answer, an absolute certainty answer, not a chance in hell they didn't do the same thing. They sure as hell did. Sure as hell did. But it's not their time yet. As Francisco, I love whenever that name comes up, I've got to say it like the movie Elf. Francisco. Boy, that's fun to say. As Francisco Gonzalez, the president of Spain's second largest bank, BBVA, said during testimony in the Bankia case, accounting in the banking sector is so elastic that it's like chewing gum. The difference between a profit and a loss, a valuable or non-performing asset on a bank balance sheet, invariably depends on who's doing the counting and what methods they're using. It's only when a bank's accounting methods come unstuck, as is happening now with Popular, that the true condition of its financial health can be revealed. But by then, for many investors, it's too late to apologize. No, it's too late. It's too late. What's the key word there? Again, they said, more to the point, some investors may begin wondering if Popular is the only bank in Spain to have massively inflated the value of the assets on its books. In other words, cooked its books. I just told you, not a chance in hell. They all do it. So, when do we find out about the other ones? Well, here's the answer. It's only when a bank's accounting methods come unstuck, as is happening now with Popular, that the true condition of its financial health can be revealed. But by then, for many investors, it's already too late. Good day, sir.
Well, be that way. All right. Next up is, like I say, I'm just knocking his out of the way. They're not all super long. In fact, this is the longest one here. It's titled, Paul Singer Warns All Hell Would Break Loose in the Stock Market.
So I just did that video. I want to say it was, yesterday or whatever. And it was something like, five market experts are all basically saying we got major market problems coming. We want to step out. We want to just sell off everything we have. This is not looking good. And I can't remember right now off the top of my head, was Paul Singer one of those guys? It may have been. But Zero Hedge has a good article here. Paul Singer warns all hell will break loose. It took Paul Singer's Elliott Management less than 24 hours, because I can remember this thing where he raised $5 billion. I think it was him. It took him less than 24 hours to raise $5 billion earlier this month. However, it is safe to say he won't be using any of that cash to buy stocks at current prices, or even BTFD, which is buy the effing dip. Instead, he writes in his Q1 letter to investors, the legendary hedge fund manager thinks, quote, that it is a good time to build a significant amount of dry powder, end quote. The reason for that is if, or rather when, Trump's pro-growth agenda fails to be implemented. He says all hell will break loose, and that a recession looms as the artificial crutches propping up risk assets are pulled out. Now, what did I just tell you recently? Obamacare plan, the repeal and replace, has been nixed for now. For 90 days. We're not going to touch that until 90 days from now, which, as I said, puts us smack dab right around September. End of fiscal year, normally October, September timeframe. That's when markets tend to crash historically. It also happens to be the September 23rd date, and I want to give you a little bonus. Someone sent me an email. Jay Snip, do you know that 2017 is the year of the Phoenix? No, I did not. Let me click on that link and do a little research. Year of the Phoenix. It's like the fiery chicken or fiery rooster or something, but it's called the fiery phoenix. It just so happens to be this year, 2017. Phoenix. On the front cover of the 1988 Economist magazine, rising from the ashes of burning paper dollars with a giant gold coin around its neck, says 2018, and get ready for a new world currency, or a world currency. And when I read you what was inside that particular article, the cover, the actual article, it talked about this new currency that would come on, and let's just call it the Phoenix currency, they said. So the Phoenix currency could do this and that, and people will want it because of this and that. Really? In 2017 is the year of the Phoenix. And that article was 29 years ago. But let me go ahead and continue here. Given groupthink, this is what he said, given groupthink and the determination of policymakers to do whatever it takes to prevent the next market crash, we think that the low volatility levitation magic act of stocks and bonds will exist until the disenchanting moment when it does not. And then all hell will break loose. Don't ask us what hell looks like. A lamentable scenario that will nevertheless present opportunities that are likely to be both extraordinary and ephemeral. The only way to take advantage of those opportunities is to have ready access to capital. Isolating the impact of the Trump put, as described recently by Deutsche Bank, Mr. Singer writes that although the growth agenda of the Trump administration is slow to get off the ground, markets still anticipate that much of it will be enacted sooner or later. And yet, according to most metrics, the Trump trade has already been priced out of most markets, with the notable exception of equities, which, as Bank of America pointed out in a note last week, are now the last one standing. So again, we've kicked the Obamacare repeal and replace out in 90 days now. And as I've said, everything they were saying, I'm talking about the Trump team and people just discussing it who looked into all this. For his tax plan to work, they must repeal and replace Obamacare first, because it ties directly in to the tax plan in some way, shape, or form. It frees up $1 trillion or something like that. So they've got to take care of that first. Then they can go to the tax plan, such as the major dropping of corporate taxes, the rates anyways, which is a great thing for businesses and you and me and everybody else. So if we're pushing that 90 days, Obamacare replacement, and then the tax thing comes next, we're at the end of the year. Perfect timing for the markets to say, oh, I guess it's not going to happen. Or maybe they pull it off. They pull a rabbit out of their hat. But this guy doesn't think so. Let's go down a little bit. What was that? Okay, Elliott's. Oh, first of all, which Elliott? What we got here? Doesn't say which Elliott. Anyways, Elliott's warning, or was that his name? Hang on. Yeah, Paul Singer's Elliott Management. That's the company. Elliott's warning of a negative reaction in equity markets if Trump's economic policies are not delivered takes place as the U.S. Congress debates how to fund proposed tax cuts for individuals and companies, and whether lawmakers are prepared to blow out the budget deficit as Trump's plan would. So far, all of Trump's various economic initiatives appear to have stalled permanently in Congress, with the market giving pricing in little possibility of their passage. In this context, Singer warns that, quote, there are actually forces in place that could point to a relatively near-term recession in the absence of solid new pro-growth policies, end quote. And with rates already at ultra-low levels, the Federal Reserve won't be able to provide a sufficient quantitative easing cushion as it did during the Great Financial Crisis, which is why, absent a pro-cyclical push, the U.S. economy may have no choice but to contract. In case you haven't seen the numbers that I keep yelling about all year long so far, the economy is not looking good. Which is ironic because Singer, a prominent Republican donor, originally staunchly opposed Mr. Trump as its candidate before meeting the president at the White House in February, where Trump claimed he's given us his total support. The manager of $32.6 billion in AUM once again points to his favorite nemesis, the Federal Reserve, and says that, quote, "We live in a time when extraordinary worldwide worldwide monetary policies have created bubble after bubble," end quote, warning that QE has done nothing to address the fundamental issues of the economy. Singer said that rising sovereign and private debt loads will come back to haunt the markets and policymakers. Expounding on a popular theme from his previous letters, Singer said that not only has the mess from the great financial crisis not been cleaned up, but all the wrong measures have been used to address the problem. Since the GFC, we have believed that the extreme monetary policy, zero interest rate, negative interest rate, quantitative easing, prevalent throughout the developed world was unsustainable and risky. He explains, as he has done every other quarter since 2008, that the solution to a crisis resulting from financial engineering is not more financial engineering, but addressing the real issues that caused the problem to begin with. That has not been one, and instead the solution to over-indebtedness should not have been the creation of more debt, and the problem of inadequate growth should not have been solved by money printing and zero and negative interest rate. Singer also blames failed policies for the current breakdown between heightened geopolitical risk and record low volatility. Quote, "On the face of it, year after year of the unusual and risky policy mix has not caused the collapse of any major currencies or significant inflation other than in asset prices, resulting in a world that has been put to sleep by pervasive complacency. This seeming lack of empirical proof of the lurking danger has lulled most investors into thinking that the elevated prices of stocks and bonds and the historical fall in price volatility in financial asset markets is somehow a permanent condition. To be sure, Singer has been one of the most outspoken market skeptics during the central planning phase of markets, issuing periodic warnings about China's debt-fueled boom and price bubbles in financial markets, inflated by central banks, 0% interest rates, negative percent interest rates, and bond buying policies of central banks. Maybe this time will be different. Even so, Singer's stated skepticism has not prevented him from outperforming not only the S&P in recent peers, but the vast majority of his peers. That doesn't make sense. In recent peers. How about in recent years? So what is Singer's advice for today's investors? In a time of historic market complacency, Singer believes that the trick in such periods is to keep out of trouble. Eventually the markets wake up, and when they do, that is when all hell will break loose. When that moment comes, Singer is confident he will be ready. So essentially what I'm getting is we're going to take our money out, no more risk. Let's take that out for a little bit, sit on the sidelines and see what happens here in the near future. And as soon as we see that temperature gauge, so to speak, starting up, market's falling, that one's falling. Okay, let's get in and essentially write it down. They're going to short it, do whatever they want, and write it down. Again, these are what most people would call the expert of experts. These people manages, what was it, $32+ billion? That's the fund he manages. Well, that's a tiny bit of money, $32 billion. And I just did the video the day before about the 5 experts. Again, I think he may have been included in that, who are saying essentially the same thing. Who wants to be involved in a market, in anything in which it's absolutely manipulated by somebody who's never supposed to have been manipulated to begin with, but because extraordinary measures have happened, we have to do so, even though they're not actually telling us that. They're just doing it anyways. You want to trust your money in that? You want to trust that they'll be able to just continue doing that forever? Nothing lasts forever. That's the old saying, right? Nothing lasts forever. So, again, I'd rather put my money in precious metals, and especially now lately, cryptocurrencies. And if by chance you missed my video last night, not only one exchange in China, but someone posted a link, a second exchange, a large one. for cryptocurrency trading are now both allowing Ethereum to take place. I believe the one I told you about takes place, well, the day you're reading it today sometime. It may have already started by the time you see this video, I'm not sure, but sometime today supposedly. And the next one, the other exchange, allegedly from what I read, is June 1st or so. It'll be live as far as Ethereum trading. So I urged everybody last night, again, if you want to play a little risk, be a little frisky, if you will, and take some Bitcoin and transfer them, convert them right now, which I said last night, into some Ethereum. Ethereum is back up. It is already back up to where it left off when we had this big drop here recently. Bitcoin was at $2,800. It has not come to that level again. It's around $2,200 to $2,300. It's hovering around there. Ethereum, on the other hand, has gone up and up and up again, rapidly erasing the losses. If these two Chinese exchanges open up in the next few days, and they supposedly are, I mean, that's what they said. That's what the announcement was from them. That means a lot of Chinese are going to get involved in trading and buying Ethereum. Which means what? The price, in theory, should go very, very, very high. Should go very high in the very near future. And funny enough, the Webbot has called for just such a thing. Watch the month of June. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum, but Ethereum was mentioned for sure in the latest $99 report that Cliff High has released, which I've already, and I can make it very simple for people. I don't want to get up and down and switch this and so. Okay. 50% Bitcoin, 50% Ethereum. Sit back, enjoy the ride. Don't do anything else. That's making it easy for you. I'm kind of doing that, but I'm deciding too, you know what? I want to play a little risky with this stuff. Hell, you only live once. This is not a manipulated market by the elite. They don't have the same tools like they do on Wall Street and their ETFs and their derivatives contracts and their futures contracts and options. Nope. You either buy the damn cryptocurrency or you don't. You don't have an overlying derivative contract that you can flood the market, sell orders, and print them at will whenever you want, and flood them again and push the price down and back off. Nope. You're either going to go in that market and buy what's available or you're not. And if you had some giant entity that they're buying, people are going to, again, they're going to buy their way up. It's just going to go up. They're going to buy it until there's hardly anything left. And the rest of us that are holding on to ours waiting, we start to sell again. We're not selling for pennies anymore, for scraps. We know where these things belong. We're going to start putting orders out there back where they were. So I wish any government or entity out there a lot of luck dealing with these cryptos. So anyways, that was my video last night. It's a gamble. Hell, we may wake up tomorrow and the next day, 3 days. Man, Ethereum went down. It was 220 something. It actually went down. It's 190 again. Huh. That's weird. Right? And it is what it is. Do I care? No, because I know. I already told you. Webbot report. According to it, Ethereum is going to $500+ in the not so distant future. 190, 220. Exactly. Doesn't really matter. Next video. Gotta, get prepared for it right now. Take care.
Alrighty. Not that we're about to have JSNIP overload. Alright, this is a quick one that kind of has my interest just in the title. It's Martin Armstrong goes full John Teeter. So the name John Teeter twerks my ear.
Now this is interesting. Martin Armstrong goes full-blown John Teeter. What? I may have a couple short videos. This will be one of them today. He's got an article. Martin Armstrong. ArmstrongEconomics.com. Posted May 30th, 2017. But the title of the video is The Plot to Overthrow Trump is Very Real. Now, there's two things here I want to talk about regarding John Teeter, the alleged time traveler guy. He said this revolution would come, the Civil War, and it would be based on a problem with the elections. So, if Donald Trump is overthrown in any way, shape, or form, and you know how hard they're trying, I would say we may have had a problem with the elections, as in we elected somebody, we picked them, and they still got taken out. right? And that could potentially cause a civil war. I mean, right? But that's not what I'm here to tell you about. Even though I'm going to include that because it's valid. It's at the very end of this small little article he wrote, which made me think, oh, John Teeter. Oh. The plot to overthrow Trump is very real, he says. There is a very real plot to overthrow Trump led by the political establishment and aided by the mainstream press. This is not simply speculation. This is the real deal. Of course, the Washington Post and New York Times are in full swing to get rid of Trump. No matter what it might be, the twist is always against Trump right now. Even down to the story of how Sean Spicer wanted to see the Pope because he is a, devout Catholic and was denied. CNN, of course, is also a part of this conspiracy. You will never find any positive article about Trump in mainstream media. Here is CNN, and we can see that 50% of the top stories are always against Trump. We have Boehner, John Boehner, coming out saying Trump is a disaster. And keep in mind, this is the guy who threw people off the committees if they did not vote for his agenda. The Kushner story is desperately trying to make something out of nothing. Again, as always. Here we have, after Flynn's removal, Kushner suggesting setting up a direct channel for diplomatic purposes regarding Syria with the Russians. That is entirely within reason and has been done during confrontations in the past. This was only a suggestion. It's not done. Yet the press twist this into somehow supporting Russia, who single-handedly defeated Hillary to put Trump in office. They think if they can just keep selling that nonsense, it will become fact. The press seems to want war with Russia and absolutely nothing else. No such link was established, and the last thing you want to do is not talk to your adversary. So why is this a major story? Oh yes, it's again Russia. The press created the Spanish-American War. They supported the Vietnam War and killed more than 58,000 American boys. Most of my high school friends died thanks to them. Behind the curtain, Republican elites are conspiring to overthrow Trump, including Mr. Boehner, to protect the establishment. John McCain and Lindsey Graham are the worst of the lot in office. They obviously picked up the phone and called Boehner for help. The Republicans have lost it. They think this populism is over with Macron's victory in France, so it's time to get rid of Trump, and it will be all okay again. I have never seen, here's the part. I have never seen such an all-out effort on a massive coordinated effort to reject the people's demand for reform, which again is why we voted for Trump. This is highly dangerous, for we can very well move forward or toward civil war. These people think getting rid of Trump and it will be all roses and raining money for them once again. They are dead wrong, and our model, his model, also warns that the United States can break up as a result of this by 2032 to 2040. John Teeter specifically said the United States, after the end of the big war he talked about, which did include China and Russia, it was a world war, it was fast, it was furious, it was brutal, a lot of people died. And he said, again, it was a result of pretty much American politics, the status quo, and the Civil War stemmed because of a quote-unquote problem with the elections. And maybe it's not this election, even though they're trying desperately to get rid of him. Maybe it's the next one in 2020. You know what I mean? I don't know. But he said, Teeter, the United States was broken up into 5 different sectors. One was more of a military side, one was an economic side, one was like a food and grain or something. I'm just trying to remember. I haven't looked this stuff up in quite a long time. But they all had like their pros, right? I think it was 5 sections, 4 or 5. I want to say 5. Again, they all had their, this one was more, economy. This one was more exports of stuff. This one was military. This one was whatever. And he mentioned how at that point later, every president was, from that point forward, was voted in and out like every year. Every single year we voted or something like that. And each one of those 5 sectors kind of had their own president, so to speak. So it's an interesting timeline that Martin Armstrong gives, 2032 to 2040, because that's exactly in the date, allegedly, again, this crazy story about John Teeter, that he was around and had to come back, back in time to do something, get the IBM 5100 and all this other crap. This is exactly the time period he talked about. Find that very interesting. So, not that Mr. Martin Armstrong thinks he and knows about John Teeter and all this crap. No, I'm telling you, Martin Armstrong goes full John Teeter. That's the title of my video. And that's why, and this is why I'm telling you that. I doubt that this man has ever heard of John Teeter or that whole damn story, nor would he even believe in it in 1 second. But it sure as hell stood out to me. So just wanted to share that with you. Take care.
Alrighty, and I promise just one more. Let's see here. Alright, his last one is titled Hong Kong's housing market has become a sea of madness, central bank warns. Promise this is his last one. If there's another one up the line, I'll ignore it. Maybe.
Kind of got a little 2 for 1. They're both directly related with one another, both from Zero Hedge covering this flawlessly, as they always do. We got some Hong Kong housing issues we want to talk about. And U.S., beyond the insanity, beyond the Zillow, foreclosure, all over the map, blue dots, every major city, plus the red dots, regular people selling, not foreclosures, out of control. Way more sellers than buyers. And these insane prices. Guess what? I'm starting with this as a short one, but the next one, it's all one video. U.S. home prices rise at fastest pace in 3 years to record highs. U.S. home prices in the 20-city Case-Shiller universe rose at 5.89% year over year, the strongest growth since July of 2014. This has pushed the National Home Price Index to new record highs. I wonder if that has any damn thing to do with the insane amount of foreclosures again I'm seeing. Again, anyone who's new to this, go to Zillow.com, start searching in any major city in your state, and then go to another state, look in their major cities, go to another state, etc. And you will see under the criteria where it says, what kind of houses are you looking at? It says foreclosures only or regular for sale only, and you can check the little boxes. I think they're both on by default. And you can zoom in, and make sure you zoom in again, just so that you can actually see the map really load up on the dots. And you will see a ton of blue dots, which mostly represent foreclosures, auctions, pre-foreclosures, etc. Okay? So this has pushed the National Home Price Index to new record highs. I wonder if that's why these foreclosures are back up again. Goodness. Perfect time to hike rates and deflate yet another bubble? Question mark. Because June we're gonna write the Fed. We should get ready to hike some rates, man. The 3 to 6 month lag effect of rate moves on home prices is looming. By the way, says Zero Hedge. That's funny, isn't it? So, speaking of a different part of the planet, we've talked at length here, Realist News, about Canada, even Australia, and the U.S., massive housing problems. You got liar loans out of control in Canada, unbelievable amount of liar loans that were produced, which again means someone didn't have the income, didn't have the money, but they somehow got the loan anyways. Darn well America did the same thing during the same time, and Australia did, because we're all having the same kind of problems for the most part. But one I haven't talked about, I don't even know if yet this year possibly. I can't really remember. I do so many damn videos. Again, Zero Hedge. Hong Kong's housing market has become a sea of madness, central bank warns. Really? And he starts it off by saying, wow, what a difference 16 months makes. Ooh. It was February of 2016 when, looking at the latest trends in the Hong Kong housing market, we wrote, we as in Zero Hedge them, that in January 2016, Hong Kong home prices tumbled the most since July 2013. And after a 12-year up cycle, prices were now down 10% from the recent peak just 4 months prior. Well, the local Centerline Property Agency estimated that total Hong Kong property transactions at the start of 2016 were on track to register the worst month on record. Again, this is 2016. Fast forward to today, when that particular blip is long forgotten, swept away by the record credit injection unleashed by China in the interim, which has spilled over into the Hong Kong housing market, where instead of concerns about a bubble bursting, The locals are preoccupied with chasing the latest and the biggest yet housing bubble to form in Hong Kong, as crowds of people line up in hopes of being the winning bidder for one of several properties for sale, some of which are oversubscribed as much as 15 times. Simon Ting tweeted, another Hong Kong new home sales oversubscribed 14 times, 0.8 today, 14 times. Not as hot as yesterday, but, only hundreds of buyers. Oh, interesting. According to the latest data from Hong Kong's Centerline Property Senta City leading index of existing homes, prices have risen an unprecedented 23% in the past year. Here I am telling you ours was 5 or something percent? Setting new price records week after week. Over the past decade, home prices in the financial capital of Asia have tripled. Wow. Yeah, that's sustainable. About as sustainable as Canada's and Australia's and the US's. As Bloomberg observed, snaking queues of thousands of prospective apartment buyers in Hong Kong signaled authorities have made no progress in cooling a red-hot property market where prices are at records. Simon Ting again. A Hong Kong new home sale site queues with over 1,000 of buyers. Last time this happened, 1997. At the Victoria Sky, a luxury project at the former airport site of Kai Tak, and at the Ocean Pride development by Cheung Kong Property Holdings, people were lining up on Friday and over the weekend for their chance to buy a home at all-time high prices. Someone tell me how this ends. I don't think I'm certain how this is going to end. Someone clue me in. K&K Property has offered an additional 200 units at Victoria Sky after it sold 306 flats on Saturday. Ming Pao, not to be confused with Kung Pao chicken from the local Chinese shop. This is the person. Ming Pao, newspaper reported. Person. I said it was a person, it was a newspaper. But then again, our Supreme Court did rule that corporations are people, so forgive me. Cheung Kong will put another 346 up for grabs after selling 496 in a single day. May 26, it said. In both cases, the developers will raise the prices of the additional units by about 2%, the newspaper reported. Yes, Hong Kong real estate prices are rising by 2%, not over a year or a month, but in one day. That, however, does not stop the relentless demand from local buyers. Hong Kong developers sold 8,616 homes in the first 5 months of the year, more than were sold in any first half since new purchasing rules were introduced in 2013, the Hong Kong Economic Times reported. What makes this particular bubble different this time? It is obvious to everyone. What makes this particular bubble different is that this time it is obvious to everyone, certainly the local press. An editorial in the Standard newspaper on Monday was surprisingly accurate by saying successive moves by the government in recent memory to cool the property market only resulted in it becoming crazier. The result is a sea of madness, what they said. It is also obvious to the local central bank, which of course, like Vancouver and Toronto, appears powerless to halt the tsunami of hot mainland money. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority has been tightening rules for lenders, Bloomberg writes, including restricting levels of lending to developers as it tries to limit financial risks and take some of the heat out of the market. And yet, so far, the result is absolutely nothing, as nobody bothers to listen to the growing warnings. Speaking at a legislative council meeting last Monday, Hong Kong's central bank chief, HKMA chief executive Norman Chan. Let me ask you a question. Central banks, you know how all the central banks in the world are pretty much run by the club. Do you know any Chinese men named Norman? First name Norman? Right. But he does have a Chan last name, so he must be for the Chinese people, not for the elite. Anyways, speaking at a legislative council meeting last Monday, Hong Kong Central Bank Chief, HKMA Chief Executive Norman Chan, said levels of demand were reminiscent of 20 years ago, just before Hong Kong suffered a property bust, and he expressed concern that people with limited financial resources were buying just because they thought prices would only keep going up, just like in a bubble. Chan said that while the economy has improved, uncertainties remain, and warned that when the property cycle reverses, the impact will be serious. With real estate prices rising fast, in some cases as much as 2% per day, his warning has fallen on deaf ears. Of course, it will be different when the bubble again bursts and everyone is shocked that the authorities let it come to this again. And then first the HKMA, then the People's Bank of China will have to again step in and bail out all the bubble-chasing speculators once more, or risk yet another economic collapse. Rinse and repeat. So, yeah, again. Well, but that's China. That's not again. What's that old 80s song? People are people, so why should it be? Da-na-na-na-na-na, looking for insane property prices. So it's going to repeat. The same crap is going to repeat. And I'm just here to report it. Sit back and wait. If you're ready to get a house, wait. Wait for the next collapse. Get a fire sale. And you can tell everybody else, I told you so. Didn't we learn from 2008? What are you guys doing? You're doing this again. People with no money, I got to get in. The prices keep going up. We really couldn't afford stuff before, but now it's just going so insane. We just got to get in. Well, now you're in at a level you can't really afford. But you're scared that it'll be super duper really unaffordable. So let's just, to hell with it, we'll go in. Let's go all in. Only to find out you got in, and then the rug's pulled out, and the freaking prices have crashed again. Lovely. Take care. I think I got one more video to do.
Alrighty, it's lawn mowing season here. Alright, here's Armed Rogue with cheese during SHTF, freeze-dried, and canned cheese taste test.
Hey everyone, Morgan here. So let's talk cheese. I love cheese. I love cheese. And I tweeted the other day, I said, I'm really going to miss cheese the most in the apocalypse. And I got a comment saying, well, you should do a video about what type of cheese is out there. There's farm cheese and stuff. Well, first of all, before we get into any of the types of cheeses taste tests here, in order to make cheese, you need whole milk. It needs that fat and everything. Even farm cheese takes whole milk. Any type of cheese that you make takes milk. So unless you have a cow or a goat or whatever, some sort of access to milk in an SHTF situation, then unfortunately, you're not going to be able to make milk. And condensed milk or powdered milk, it's just not going to work because it doesn't have the fat that cheese needs. And so that's kind of why making your own cheese in an SHTF situation, unless you have your own milk source, then it's just probably not going to be an option. That's why there's stuff like freeze-dried cheese. Now this was about it was about $15 just for this. Let's see, this is 8 ounces. But as soon as I opened it, it smells really good. I have it rehydrating here, and it's supposed to wait about 5 or 10 minutes. I think rehydrating cheese is kind of weird. I've never thought of doing that. Also, what we have is we have this delectable canned cheese. This is canned cheese. So right, okay, there. It's canned cheese. See it? Okay. All right. So we have this canned cheese here, and it's kind of rubbery, really rubbery. Okay, so this is by Bega. This one can alone was $5, and I've seen it on Amazon for $10 for one can. It's a little pricey. The freeze-dried food I think is a little a little better priced. Okay, so we're gonna try the canned cheese first. As far as nutritional facts, things like that, this canned cheese is pretty bad for you. Like, it has a ton of sodium. Let's see. The a serving size is it's 1/6 of the can. So if you put this into equal 6 slices, it should be about, one piece would be about sixth of it. And the sodium, of course, is going to be the worst. It's 490 milligrams per sixth. So that's a lot. But let's go ahead and get this out. It smells like fake cheese. I mean, it is processed cheese, processed canned cheese. Get out. I don't really see like any water or anything, which is good. It's nice. It's good. Okay. So let's give this a try. It tastes like Velveeta. It's like a white version of Velveeta. But it's good, Speaking of Velveeta, there are actual store-bought stuff. Like, I cannot buy this in the store. I haven't been able to find freeze-dried stuff, freeze-dried cheese in the store. What I have found is I've found, like, Velveeta, of course. And then there's things like, the Cheese Whiz, all those kinds of canned cheeses, cheese sauces, powdered cheeses, things like that. So there are types of cheeses that you can get from the store that might work as a sort of substitute, or maybe like a sprinkle or something. But I'm not really sure, but it's not actual cheese, it's not cheese. This is basically Velveeta though. But with all those, the expiration is like a year or two. So even the fake cheeses don't last a terrible long time. I really truly expected this canned cheese to be absolutely horrendous, but it's not terrible. I have to admit though, I am kind of like my husband and I are kind of like a cheese snobs, So let's see, I think it's been about 5 or 10 minutes with this cheese. It feels reconstituted. It's kind of what it looks like. It says to drain off the excess water. It said it's a 1/4 cup of cheese with a 1/2 cup of water. I think the 1/2 cup of water was maybe a little much, but let's go ahead and drain off the cheese. Drain off the water. Alright. So here's the cheese now after I've drained all the water. It's, wet and, nobody really likes wet cheese. But I suppose I could leave it out on like a paper towel or something, just kind of let it dry if I wanted to. But if I was going to cook something with this, it probably wouldn't matter that it's wet. Just put it in there and cook it. So we're going to try a little bit. See how acceptable it might be. Oh man. Freeze-dried cheese is very bland. It's just, it's like we eat Tillamook sharp cheddar, and man, I really must be a cheese snob because this is just like I think I prefer the Bega Velveeta cheese. And canned cheese over this. It's okay. So for cooking and stuff, this is definitely a good option. I mean, it has cheese flavor. Even regular cheddar cheese, it's obviously not fresh cheddar cheese, okay? You have to keep that in mind. But as far as getting freeze-dried cheese for like cooking or, having some sort of a little more normalcy in your prepping stuff, freeze-dried cheese isn't a bad option. Just eating it straight like this, no go. Now eating this canned stuff just by itself is, I actually says, I'm pretty impressed by the taste. It's okay. Again, it tastes like Velveeta, but if I wanted just some cheese to munch on, I would actually munch on this canned cheese. I would not munch on the freeze-dried. in saying all that, again, this was about $15, this freeze-dried cheese. And this was only for 8 ounces. If you want any of the number 10 cans of freeze-dried cheese, it's going to be about $40, $40, $50, or $60. So it's a little expensive, but all freeze-dried stuff is kind of expensive anyway. It just kind of depends on your priorities, you know, what you really need. You know, do you need cheese, you know, in your preps, that kind of thing. Plus, this is kind of nice because now I can just take this and I can kind of repurpose it into smaller portions and vacuum seal them. So maybe I could take this on like camping trips and things like that, and you know, have a little cheese, you know, in our tacos or something, instead of taking fresh cheese. So this is good for camping purposes, you know, backpacking, you know, whatever, not just SHTF. So anyway, I think when it really comes down to cheese, just like when it comes down to fresh meats and things like that, freeze-dried is ultimately one of the best ways to go. But you have to keep in mind that the tastes are going to be a little different, you know. It's not going to be the same as fresh stuff, and that's okay, you know, because they're, you know, they're not fresh. But as far as cheese and the SHTF, there are some options. But, you know, what do you think? What would be your go-to way to get cheese in SHTF if you just had to get cheese? Would Cheese Whiz be enough for you? All right. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later. Let's see what the doggies think of the cheese. Here, Isaiah first. This is the freeze-dried. It's for Miles. What do you guys think? Dogs will eat anything. You're not a good judge.
Alrighty, let's see. Oh, fun. At least we're done with the J-Snip videos. Alright, here's one from BP Earthwatch. It's CERN awake, creating energy pulses from the sun.
May 31st, 2017. You're looking at the last 3 days of the solar wind speed, guys. It's a Discover satellite. Notice on the 29th that I've got it paused on there. On that pulse, we had that 6.8 earthquake. Now, I showed you on that day where those two pulses matched the pulses that were coming in from the CERN experiment in Geneva, Switzerland. Now, looking today, we've got 3 pulses, guys, and that's bringing our solar wind speed up 200 or 300 kilometers per second in these pulses. Never before have I seen that. Again, it's matching perfectly with what CERN's doing. This is just today. Look at your timestamp. Right here, we're at 0100 hours with the first pulse. You go over to 0800 hours. Then you go over to 1300 hours here. Now remember, this is UTC time. CERN is one of the few scientific organizations that does not use it. It's very good to use UTC time because you can match a lot of different events, earthquakes, things like that. But this is matching up. You can see now they have dumped their beam, but if you go to the awake plasma cell, remember this is the new linear accelerator, guys, and it is very short. It's not that large 17-mile ring. This thing is only about 30 feet. Think about it. Look at the energy ball that's being created here on the BTV section. Dated 15/50/29. That's again not UTC time. Look at this energy ball. We've never seen it before because awake is just now awakening. And this particular accelerator feeding into the larger collider may have everything to do with this effect we're seeing on the solar wind speed. It's highly dangerous because they're just now kind of cranking up, and we're seeing the solar wind speed jump from 350 to 700 kilometers per second in pulses. That's never happened before, guys. That happens when we have coronal mass ejection, solar wind speed, and it lasts more than a few minutes. It lasts for several hours, if not days. Now, you can see the SDO images of our sun now. The filament left that center area yesterday, and you can see we got sunspots that are coming around on the left side, and we got one that's Earth facing. These are not large sunspots, and what I've seen happen with these is they're simply a trigger mechanism for the filament that we saw erupt yesterday. Now, CERN is a highly protected organization. If you work there, everything's paid for. You don't pay taxes. It's kind of like its own separate country almost, guys. And it's right there on the Franco-Swiss border. And we've seen the Euro elite really get behind this thing. Why, I don't know. They're saying they're looking for the Big Bang or the beginning of the universe, which makes no sense. To spend billions of dollars for that? But they're almost untouchable. It would be amazing to see our new president bring this up before a group of European politicians and go into depth about what they're really doing, the cost involved, and the cost that our planet is having to endure when we see the spikes come in, strike our planet, causing earthquakes, causing extreme radiation pouring into our atmosphere, but no one seems to care. We're watching it, guys. It's a heads up. Be safe.
Alrighty, let's see. Okay, here's Dabu 7 with alert. Flight MH128 turns back to Melbourne after passenger threatens cockpit. Airport on lockdown.
This is Dabu 7. We have a flight MH128. This is a Malaysia Airlines flight out of Melbourne heading to Kuala Lumpur. They are stating that a man has tried to enter the cockpit of the plane, claiming that he has explosives. The airport has now been locked down, and this flight has been diverted back to Melbourne. This is a breaking situation. The last couple incidents that we've seen with airplanes have involved Malaysia Airlines. Now we have another here where an individual is said to be trying to enter the cockpit. Over here, breaking news, disruptive passenger, the airport on lockdown. They're saying returned after he tried to enter the cockpit shortly after claiming he has explosives. This is a developing situation right now. I wanted to get it out there and let it be known. This is what's going down right now at this Melbourne airport. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Dabu7 on Twitter for the latest updates. I'll be tweeting out any updates that they send out in regards to this whole thing. Also, hit me up, Dabu7yahoo.com if you got any info you want me to get out there. This has been Dabu7. Peace.
Alrighty, and I refreshed and I took a peek, and Jason, it does have another one. It's hilarious. Well, I think it is anyway. Let's see. Here we go. Up next is Survival Lily with Apollo Tactical Compound Bow giveaway, something like that. 450,000 subscribers.
Hi guys, my name is Lily, and today one of my subscribers is going to win this bow. Stay tuned. That's pretty accurate, I have to say. As you guys know, I have recently reached over 450,000 subscribers, which is pretty awesome. And the company Apollo Tactical, my sponsor, has decided they want to give a bow to one of my subscribers. The bow here comes in a pretty sturdy case. It's so sturdy, I'm pretty sure that you can take it on an airplane with you. Okay, let's take a look at the bow. As you can see, you have a lot of space in the box here. The bow comes with 12 arrows 6 carbon arrows and 6 aluminum arrows, and some of the arrows have field tips and other arrows have razor sharp hunting tips. And you get the bow itself. This is an old model. The new model comes with a black camouflage painting. They had to change the color because some Chinese company was ripping off this product and they were selling it. So only the bow with the shadow black camouflage color is the authentic Apollo tactical bow. And yeah, the bow is pretty cool. It's completely adjustable. There are quite some accessories that come with the bow. The first accessory is this awesome lightweight arrow quiver, and you can attach it to the side of the bow, and yeah, you don't have to mess around with back quivers, so that's pretty awesome. The next thing that you get is a simple bow stand, so you don't have to lie your bow into the dirt. The next thing that you get is this release here, trigger release, and you get some wax for the cables, and this hex wrench is important to adjust the bow. And as I said, the bow is completely adjustable. You don't need a bow press or anything. You can adjust a lot of things by yourself. And that's the reason why the new set comes with 2 manuals. First off, a manual for the bow and then a manual for bow and arrow tuning. This package now comes with 3 authentical Apollo tactical accessory bags, and the company now ships to USA, Canada and the European Union. Yeah, this is a pretty cool set. I'm a beginner myself and I'm not the best compound shooter, but it definitely makes a lot of fun. If you want to win this set here, the bow and the box and all the accessories and the arrows, it's pretty easy. You just need to be a subscriber to my channel, you need to be a fan of my Survival Lily Facebook fan site, and you need to share this video from my Facebook fan site. And in about a week or so I'm going to choose a random winner. If you want to acquire this bow, just follow the link in the description, which leads you to the website of Apollo Tactical, and I've also inserted an Amazon link below. I really want to thank my sponsor Apollo Tactical for giving away such an expensive bow. This is a really cool set that you can get and win. One of my subscribers is going to be the lucky winner, who knows, maybe it's you. And yeah, I really want to thank you for 450,000 subscribers. That's almost 500,000 people, you know. So I'm very honored, and I can't believe that so many people have subscribed to my channel, so that's really awesome, and I really want to thank you. And yeah, I hope that I can entertain you as good as before in future, and I want to thank you for watching, and stay tuned till next time.
Alrighty, next up is BP Earthwatch with East Coast Rocket Launch Live.
May 31st, 2017. Guys, just a quick update, especially for you guys on the East Coast. In the morning, they're going to launch this rocket, they're saying between 4:27 and 4:42 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be launched from Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. It says if you look along the mid-Atlantic coast early Thursday morning, June 1st, look up. A NASA-sounding rocket will release luminescent blue, green, and red vapor into the sky, weather permitting. The artificial clouds will be visible from New York to North Carolina and west as far as Charlottesville, Virginia. And you're looking at the countdown as I'm doing the video. I'm going to link you to the site where you can watch the launch. Now, as it releases these glowing artificial clouds, is what they're calling it, the researchers will be able to track the motion of particles in Earth's upper atmosphere and ionosphere. The launch will be on space.com. I'll put the link below. It's courtesy of NASA Wallops. Also, where you were just watching the countdown launch, I will put a direct link to that. You can watch it there also. Now, they will release these from 96 to 120 miles above the Earth. They pose no hazard to people who live along the coast. Their tracers will glow after release as barium, strontium, and cupric oxide interact with the atmosphere. And they used these sounding rockets before. They can launch them up through the auroras and get measurements of the energy that's being ionized there. But the rocket will eject 10 soft drink-sized canisters between 6 and 12 miles from the rocket's main payload, and 3 containers will release the vapor between 4 and 5.5 minutes after launch. It was scheduled for May 29th. They had to reschedule it because of weather. And as you've seen, people are trapped in the airports in some areas. Cameras will be stationed on the ground at Wallops as well, and it's in Duck, North Carolina. Although clear skies are preferred, the launch can still go on without clear conditions at both sites. The canisters will be released from a 2-stage Terrier improved male-mute sounding rocket, and the entire mission flight time is set for 8 minutes. The main payload, which deploys the canisters, will land about 90 miles from Wallops Island in the Atlantic Ocean and will not be recovered. Some of these, as you saw in the video, are recovered on land, but this one, they don't need to recover the rocket. They're going to observe, again, the chemical reaction in the atmosphere. But as we talked about, they can go through the auroras above the Arctic, measure all of that as they go up through it, and then when they get those measurements, a lot of time that particular payload will be recovered. It's interesting, we're getting auroras very far south. We talked about things like the Earth has been tilting since it started in 2004, but really the tilt accelerated with the Fukushima earthquake. And the phenomenon that you're seeing here in the left is what's called, has been named a proton arc, not the aurora, but these green lines called a picket fence, guys, since Fukushima have started becoming more and more common this year, even more, but we're seeing the tilt, I think, more extreme now. But this is actually the energy coming with this proton arc across the surface of our planet and lighting the magnetic field lines. You see this illustration here with the purple field lines, our Earth shields, and these are generated by solar wind from the sun. And now we have other factors involved that we see affecting our Earth shields. And I know a lot of people will come on and say, in their videos especially, that CERN has no effect on their magnetic shields. I've been proving it for about 3 years now, guys. It's beyond any doubt as we see the monitors at CERN pulse and our shields bend and collapse. No doubt about it, and people are telling you that it has no effect or that it's for the benefit of mankind. Most likely they're on someone's payroll to keep certain information from becoming suspicious. Most of these people will stay very limited in what they talk about. They cannot talk about politics. They cannot talk about events across the world that affect us. And they will deny certain things that have become obvious. It's a heads up. Be safe.
Alrighty. Next up, we have Full Spectrum Survival with Afghanistan embassy bombing on the ground in Afghanistan when SHTF exclusive report.
Hey everybody, Brad with Full Spectrum Survival. So as you know, an event took place in Kabul, Afghanistan today. Recent Ramadan attacks have taken place in Iraq, and we're seeing an increase in Islamic State-driven extremist events happening across the world. I want to talk to you a little bit about a discussion that I was having with David from MyTac. You guys know MyTac as a sponsor here for the World News Update. He's also a close acquaintance and somebody who is on the ground right now in Afghanistan. Of course, I can't talk too much about the particulate, about location or anything else, but he is on the ground and experienced this event. We were having some relayed communication between ourselves back and forth, and I want to read it to you, but I want you to know that some of it, of course, has been paraphrased to leave out personal identifying information. He writes, at 8:25 a.m. local time, I was sitting behind my computer responding to an email from Brad at Full Spectrum Survival. In his email, he asked me how things were on my side, and if anything new was going on. As I wrote my response that covered some new products that we're going to be offering, I also discussed that all things were quiet as the Muslims and the locals celebrated Ramadan. Less than 5 minutes after hitting the send button, the building that I was in started to shake. Less than a second later, the sound wave from a massive explosion hit like a sledgehammer. I sat behind my computer motionless for a few moments to assess what I could. As glass was raining down from all over, I tried to listen for gunfire. A complex attack can start with an explosion, with a follow-up, small arms attack, or can start with a ground assault, ending with shooters detonating with suicide vests. So there was correlation here that he's looking for. All was quiet except for a small amount of sporadic gunfire. It's not uncommon for the poorly trained local security forces to randomly shoot at anything and everything after an IED attack. The good news was, I was wide awake and fully clothed. All my gear, to include my medical bag, was less than 10 feet away from where I was. After checking with everyone in my proximity, we kitted up just in case a delayed follow-up ground assault was coming. Two main considerations I took was to put on protective glasses and leather shooting gloves. With many windows shattered and shards of glass hanging ready to fall, you need to protect your hands and feet. This is something that we've discussed and something that David discussed on an interview we did with him. There was also dust everywhere, but not enough to require an N95 mask. A second explosion could have showered us in even more glass, hence the eye protection. I'm not saying to keep your boots next to the bed, but even in the United States, it's a good idea to have a good pair of slippers or even flip-flops next to your bed so that you can use those to get to your boots. I have 4 pairs of eye protection ready to go. Dark tinted sunglasses, pink tinted sunglasses for cloudy days, take recognition of that, clear lens glasses, and clear lens goggles with a higher ballistic rating. Because of the time of day and having to move through a structure, I chose the pink tinted glasses, which are Oakley Half Jacket XLJs with a VR28 lens. So because the inside of the building would mimic cloudy days, how it would be going from brighter to less bright, he chose the pink glasses. That's something you guys should take note of. All of our windows coated with window film stayed in place. Blast-facing windows with no film blew out all over the place, injuring many people. 3M window film is available in the USA, and it's worth every penny. Now, we have coated with 3M before here at Full Spectrum Survival. We've also coated with an Israeli film that has a higher ability to withstand heat with Molotov cocktails, including projectiles. So those are 2 good options for you. Our power didn't go out, David writes, and it was daylight. Be prepared with headlamps and flashlights should things happen at night or when the power goes out. Over here, we expect these things to happen, and frankly, I'm surprised that they don't happen more often. We are prepared to handle it. In the United States, we are faced with gas leak explosions in our urban and suburban areas, which are also extremely violent, and violent in the way that they mimic an IED explosion. The big takeaway from this is to have the proper equipment close to deal with the unexpected. If possible, protect your eyes, protect your hands, and protect your feet, and then assess and reassess your situation until the scene is safe. He signs off with God bless, David. David, thank you very much for writing that into us and for giving us an on-the-ground report of what happened. The video that we saw regarding the explosion in Kabul was targeted around the Western embassies and the government that is placating, if you will, or in line with the Western ideology, with our ideology. And so this was an Islamic State-driven attack against Westerners. It's something that we're seeing that rises a dangerous trend. The trend is that the Islamic State is looking to create new fear, create a new brood of extremist fighters, to create division among those that feel that they should be separate from the Western world. What's going to happen here is we're going to see more extremism in the near future. We're going to see these new recruits come over, not just with attacks taking place in these other countries, but also here in the Western world. Look at Manchester. There's some reports of silent cells that are being activated in the United States and other areas of Europe. The biggest thing here, I think, is situational awareness. Remaining aware that this can happen anywhere. As you go to the mall, as you pick up some items at Walmart, as your wife comes home from work. These events can take place literally at any time, because it is at the whim of the attacker to when the event will take place. And you are forced to be on the reactionary side immediately. So like David said, have your first reaction gear ready. This isn't a die-hard moment when you're going to step through glass to get to your firearm. That will impede your ability to survive. Have your boots ready. Have a form of shoe to get to your boots ready. Have protective eyeglasses and leather gloves nearby. Have your first reaction kit nearby. David said that he had his medical kit ready. Have that ready. To take it back from an extremist side and put it just towards local events that could happen, what if you did have a gas explosion or an earthquake? Your first aid kit and your ability to get to your family and assess the situation would be number one on your priority. So have those things nearby, not just stuffed away in a trunk, not put in a closet. Have them reachable. If you must, create a decorative space for them so that it doesn't look like you just have everything geared up and kitted and ready to go, if that's what your family needs to do to remain ready. But as David said, this can happen anywhere and at any time. Take advantage of power outages that you experience. Take advantage of regional disasters in the form of earthquakes and things like that, and look at those situations and say, what could I do in that situation? And then use that to be better prepared. So David, thank you very much for writing that into us. Thank you for giving us that on-the-ground report. Guys, if you heard or saw anything different, please leave it in the comments below. If you have questions for David, he's on a different time zone than us, but he will try to get back to some of them. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. From Kelly and I to you and yours, stay safe and keep watch.
Alrighty. Next up, we have William Mount with Trump's enemies fall like rats.
Welcome once again to our channel. Welcome to the smartest, most active, and coolest audience on the planet. It's the 31st of May, 2017. Trump's enemies are falling before him. We are watching President Trump's enemies fall before him. Consider those who have died since he started running as a Republican nominee. David Rothschild, David Rockefeller, the original Big H, yeah, she's dead. Her double is so bad, though. George Soros, his double is so bad. The original George Bush, his double is really bad. 4 members of the ruling council, 3 more within 22 days. And Brzezinski, the meanest, most evil of them all. And President Trump has now arrested Congressman Anthony Weiner and is preparing cases on at least 100 key politicians in D.C., including some for the murder of, you know who, the old head of the DNC. Like Senator McCain and his entire rat pack in Arizona. After President Trump met with the Roman Pope, he has, shall we say, been anointed. What he managed to do was change the plans of the Jesuits. You see, their plan was to kill all of America and all of the Japanese. And rather than arresting the Jesuits and having a world war against these scumbucket pieces of garbage, what he has decided to do is what any politician would do. He specifically got them on his side. Smart man, this Trump. Not a dummy. As you can see from the front cover of The Economist, and we're going to let you look at this because every time we focus in on this, our camera dies. The Tower, Russia and Christianity leading the way as the old world churches are torn down. President Trump, the judgment of the planet. The world will revolve around New York City. He will stand tall on a tower, leading the people out of horrible things like Trans-Pacific Partnership. He will watch the New World Order implode upon itself, literally blow itself up. He will crank on the factories of America, He will put the European powers in a spin, and they will pay what they owe. And the new stars will be those who support President Trump. Wow, we didn't die. He will lead this Christian revolution of America and Russia. And this was quite a while ago. The Economist said this. Within a year, those who remain in the media will no longer be lying skunks, and those who support Trump will be the stars. It's a matter of telling the truth, folks. That's all. So now, it's not a matter of making you think what we want you to think. It's a matter of telling the truth. Huge difference. So now, thanks to his visit to Rome, he's been anointed, no consecrated, to lead the world into a new era with remarkable enough the blessings of the Jesuits and the Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Russian Church. Don't know what that's all about. In other news, first the government of El Salvador. Oh yeah, this is fabulous. In other news, 300, almost 400 members of the M13 gang members have been sent back to El Salvador. And the government is furious because they now have to jail them. Rather than releasing these convicted criminals back onto the streets, which was Obama's order. See, there's a detention facility here in Tacoma with 400 prisoners. They get convicted of child rape. They get convicted of drug dealing, murder, whatever. These illegal aliens are then held for another 2 weeks and then released back onto the streets of Tacoma. Well, already President Trump has sent 398 back to El Salvador with another probably 15 or 20,000 to go. This is actually happening across the globe, as the new president has already arrested and is processing for return to the country of origin over 41,318 illegal criminals. That's a lot of criminals. So anyway, President Trump, the first president in probably 40 years who's actually following international law. Unbelievable. And finally, in a news story near and dear to my heart, Evergreen State College may get closed. Apparently, Professor Brett Weinstein questioned the school's decision to remove all white people from the campus for a day of diversity training. And he was severely chastised. Well, that made the lawmakers mad. If you ever manage to go to Evergreen, you'll find out that they are the meanest, nastiest people you'll ever meet in terms of staff. And I've been there quite a few times. They don't teach, they indoctrinate. It's about time they got fully defunded, along with most of the other colleges and universities across this country. If a university can't stand on its own, get rid of it. They were set up to be financially stable, and they've so changed it. If they can't be financially stable, get rid of the college. For you Intel geeks, with Brzezinski dead, the members of the council will be replaced shortly. Then 5 days later, the next council. 16 days later, the next member. CIA, you have about 22 days to get your act together. The replacements will have identical DNA, and they run the computer system anyway. Endgame, CIA, put up or shut up. My guess is your leaders are too arrogant to act. Savings tip of the day. Thank God for Ronnie's Get the Tea, Allison C., and Ceylon Cinnamon. I've had a fever ever since I stepped on that bottle cap and cut myself with a rusty knife. And Allison C., Ceylon Cinnamon, and a little bit of Imusis seem to be doing the job. I'll restart Life Change Tea here in a few days. I had pretty well stopped everything to see what was getting to me. Please pray that President Trump is protected. Please also pray that your family is protected in what is coming. God bless to each and every one of you. We love you guys more than you could imagine. You really are the coolest audience on the planet. And we appreciate meeting you in the grocery stores. Don't think it's a burden when you come up to us. You are a pleasure to meet. And I mean that. Thank you. God bless. And good night.
Alrighty, and let's see. We are going to do the other snip one because it is very relevant to what he was talking about earlier. This is titled "Breaking Veritasium." I'm not quite sure how that's pronounced, but it's up 350%. What is this? 10-1 with erythium, the other stuff he was talking about. So, kind of interesting.
So somebody sent me this. It's a GitHub URL, but it's some kind of an exchange. I've never heard of it, but somehow it's tracking Ethereum to Veritasium. What the payout, what the difference is right now. Not the payout, but the cost essentially of converting Ethereum into Veritasium. Now, as you know, the only way to get Veritasium was through the initial coin offering, like an IPO, through Reggie Middleton's last name, his site. And he's the one that created Veritasium. It rides on the Ethereum blockchain, but the only way to get these Veritasium coins, at least from April 25th or so to May 25th, which was the deadline, again, during the initial offering phase, when I got it, and when I got it, it was towards the end. There was only like 4 or 5 days left in the initial offering. And at that moment in time, it was roughly $6 for a Veritasium coin when I did the math on how many Ethereum I transferred over, did the little conversion thing I showed you. I did the video on how to do it, and then got X number of these coins out of it. And then I said, okay, well, that's how many coins I got. What's the price of Ethereum today? Boom, did the math. It was like $6 a pop, a coin, you could say. So someone sent me this, thanks to this subscriber of mine, appreciate that, by the way, sent me this exchange where you may even be able to buy and sell them there. I'm not really sure. But this isn't, and from what I've gathered, let me go back. Maybe this isn't exactly where you can exchange them. Maybe this is just keeping up with how much these Veritasium coins are now costing via Ethereum. You know how there's like the gold to silver ratio, and it's like 70-1, and worldwide history has always showed us it's about 20-1, 16-1, normally speaking. Well, this is a perfect example of, for example, if silver is at 70-1, or let's call it 80-1. Better do that for easier math. 90-1 with gold, and it goes down to 30-1, right? 30, 60, 90, 3 times. So what that would mean would be silver went up 3 times in value. Just like that, nothing else happened, just the ratio changed. I'm here to tell you, based off of this that I printed out from that exchange, and I'll link it to you, by the way, in the description of this video. Again, I'm not sure if you can actually sign up on this exchange. I've never heard of it, but if you can, and then go and buy and sell Ethereum or Veritasium via Ethereum, I'm not sure. It might just be calculating and figuring out what these Veritasium coins are now costing via Ethereum. How many Ethereum does it cost you, where it was, which ended up calculating to $6 worth, or each of these Veritasium coins were $6. So, as you know, Ethereum right now is around $230 roughly. It's been bouncing around a little bit today, which is all-time high territory. I did do the video yesterday telling y'all I'm jumping in to Ethereum. I'm selling some of my Bitcoin, getting into Ethereum, because the new Chinese exchange, not the new exchange, but one of the major Chinese exchanges is going to allow Ethereum to now be traded. And then I also found out that a second fairly large also exchange in China, in a number of days, as in like 2 days later, so call it June 1st or 2nd, is going to be doing the same thing, allowing Ethereum to be traded. So I thought, again, buy the rumor, sell the news. Not just a rumor, it's a fact, but same thing applies. Buy the rumor, sell the news. They're probably going to push the price of Ethereum up on this. New players are going to jump in on those exchanges, and I mean, thus far, it appears to be correct because we're at all-time highs now with Ethereum pushing 232, and it was already doing this last night. And what I've determined this morning, by the way, because it said it was GM time plus 8, so I searched what is Hong Kong time to U.S. Eastern time. It was exactly the opposite of the time here. So if it's 8 a.m. here, it's 8 p.m. over there. Well, this thing was supposed to go live at 12. It said over there. Well, 12 midnight or 12 in the afternoon? I have no idea. But it looked like it happened in the middle of last night, our time, and which is why later on, about 3 hours later after I did my video, it was already pushing $232 for Ethereum. And by the way, when I came out and did that video, it was 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. It was $210 for Ethereum. It jumped to $232. That would have been a nice profit taking for anybody. By the time you saw the video, it actually got put on YouTube, an hour later or so. It already jumped up to 220, by the way. So, but again, I already made my trade, did my thing, took my Bitcoin, flipped them into Ethereum. So, anyways, this video, Veritasium was approximately 33 to 1 with Ethereum. Okay? That ratio, according to this chart, this little thing I pulled up here today that someone sent me, is showing that Ethereum is now, Veritasium is now 10 to 1 with Ethereum, which is just slightly better than a 300% increase in the price, or 3 times the value. So whatever number of Veritasium I had just went up 3 times in value based off of this. Again, I'm going to link this little exchange or whatever the hell this is to you so you can click on it yourself and see. And there it is. Order book, Ethereum, Veritasium. So it looks like it's tracking something here. And as you can see, it's 10 Ethereum, 100 Veritasium. So that's a straight up 10 to 1 right there. But it was recently 33 to 1 when I got in and advised all my loving peeps to get in, and here's how to do it. I'm going to help you because I love you guys. Why? Because when those advertisements play on my video, a lot of you sit through them, even though you don't have to, even though you can push the skip button, as you know, that's the rules. But I love you one way or the other, even if you click skip all the time. I don't care. It's fine. It's what you're allowed to do. You can do it. But I'm glad to say that me following the webbot all these years, taking immense amounts of shiznit from so many people, even though I've showed you numerous times some pretty incredible webbot hits, even though we're the biggest one we're ever waiting for, silver and gold, when are they going to explode, hasn't happened yet. Sorry, hasn't happened yet. But I started telling you about the Bitcoin stuff. It's going on 2 years now. It's the end of 2015. We went through all of 2016 watching Bitcoin and other cryptos do what the webbot said they would do, and when CliffHigh said they would do it. Now we're entering 2017 and they're going crazy, the cryptos, as predicted again by CliffHigh's webbot report, and not only his regular report, but the one-off cryptocurrency reports. I think he's released a total of 3 now over the last 3 months, including the last one here very recently, which is titled the June one, even though it came out a couple days before, a few days before June. And I read it and said, oh, well, got some advice here. Once again, Veritasium's in there. And I said, you know what, good, we got our Veritasium from the last report. It talked about getting into Veritasium. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I advised my peoples, you guys, that not necessarily advised you, but I told you what I'm doing and why I'm going to do it. And I want to ride this one up. We keep missing these coin opportunities when they're first released. I'm not waiting again to see what happens. Let me sit back and see. No, I'm getting in there balls to the wall. Or as Frank would say, tuck my balls into the side and got busy. Tuck your balls in. And anyways, this thing isn't out yet. It's not really on the exchanges yet. Like the main exchanges, like Kraken and all these other ones. They're going to ultimately be putting this on there. But they're not there yet. So what happens when they finally get put on the exchanges? And I'm here to tell you, even in Cliff's report, the latest one, as as well as some conversations I've had, I think we're all in agreement, just a few of us, that although Veritasium sounds like it's going to do well for a long period of time, the initial bomb rush of so many people figuring it out even as they get late to the game into Veritasium, and I say late to the game meaning once it's finally put on an exchange and then people start getting into it and then later on they get into it again, or new people get into it. In other words, maybe a month or two, quite possibly sooner, I don't know, when it's finally on in one or two major exchanges and people are starting to really trade Veritasium and there's a big rush, again, a big bull rush, I'm going to be looking for the exit sign, so to speak, on Veritasium. I don't know if I'll be able to time it properly. I have no idea. But that's probably when the craziest part of it's going to happen, I think. And that's when I want to get out. So if today, this isn't even really out there to trade. I mean, maybe you can on this exchange, whatever the hell it's, maybe it can be done somehow on here. I don't know how. But I'm not touching it, by the way. I'm waiting until it's on an actual exchange like Kraken or Coinbase or whatever major exchange gets it first, which should be Kraken. It's it might even be the largest exchange based on volume that I've been looking at lately. And hopefully my freaking account is finally verified level 3. But even if it's not, you can at least still go in there and trade stuff, sell and buy, and it just sits on your account online. You can't just put it in your bank account yet if you're not tier 3. So that's what we'll be waiting on. But I'm hoping it's on there at that point. And I could say, guys, I love you all. I'm out. I'm selling. Gone. Goodbye. Good day, sir. And then I say, you remember that video I did, 2, 3, 4 months ago? I was sitting in my car and I told you that it was 33 to 1 with Ethereum. Now it's 10 to 1. Well, by the way, Ethereum's, $500-$600 today. And the ratio was 33 to 1, 10 to 1. And back then I paid $6 per coin, if you will, Veritasium. And now the price of Ethereum is, again, $500-$600. We'll call it $600. And $600, even at 10 to 1, right? Even at 10 to 1 is 60, right? Today, it's $26. The math today of what this is worth, $6 at a 10 to 1 or whatever. If you apply that ratio, again, $260 for Ethereum today. Or excuse me, that math is wrong. $22. I think I texted someone said 26. No, I'm wrong. $22. Ethereum is, well, no, it's actually 230. The high today is 230, 232. So again, 10 times, you're talking $23. Okay, so something that was $6 recently for me is going for, again, 10 to 1, $23. This isn't a three. This is not a 300% increase. This is actually more like a 4% or 400% or 4 times increase. $6 times 400%. 6 times 4 is 24. That would imply a $240 price of Ethereum. We're not there yet. It's 230. So I'm about 350 or whatever the hell the math is. 350% higher, whatever it is. So I want to use that same math at $600. I bought at $6, right? $6 per Veritasium. And Ethereum is, let's say, fictitiously here, $600, and it's still, for whatever reason, it's still 10 to 1, which is going to be probably bullcrap. It's probably going much higher than 10 to 1. It was already 33 to 1. Now it's 10 to 1. It's going to be coming down, I bet. But to be fair, let's just call it 10 to 1. 600, again, 60. 60 times 10, 10 to 1, 600. So what I bought at $6 today is going to be worth, again, in my little example here, $60 per. That's a big 10-4. Again, this is what we call getting in when, these things are pennies to buy and selling them when they're dollars to sell, And this thing shows 10 to 1 right now, when it was just recently 33 to 1. And had you got in the very first month of this initial offering, which was the end of April, so let's say you got in the first week of this offering, which would have been the last week of April, the discount was much greater. So you may have, and not to mention, Ethereum wasn't pushing $190, $200 then. At least I don't believe it was, not at the end of April. Which might mean there's people out there, oh dude, I've got these Veritasium at $1, $2. Oh yeah, easy. Could you imagine what they're about to make? And here I am being very happy, looking very happy about $6 that I got in at, showing that today is 10 to 1. which would cost you $23 right now to buy one of these things, according to this data. I'm going to share this link with you. I just want to let you know, Cliff's Webbot report thing is doing great. And this thing is not even on the real exchanges yet. Where could this thing go? And if his future price, which he said this is, we have to like convert it to Brazilian real and this and that, and it's 13% of Bitcoin at the time, so a basic estimate in, you know, maybe 2018 sometime is we might see $1,200, $1,300, whatever US dollar price for Ethereum. If we see 100, let's call it, you know, because I'm a positive guy here, $1,300 Ethereum by chance, in all this insanity, and let's call it 2018, $1,300 Ethereum, same 10-to-1 ratio I'm talking about with Veritasium, you now have $130 per Veritasium. But again, that's 2018. I don't plan on waiting that long. I really think whatever's going to happen, the big bull rush will be in the beginning, and I may just get in and out then, and then take some of that profit, some of it, no, probably all of it, and say, okay, now I'm going to ride Bitcoin and Ethereum the rest of the way. I may say, you know what, I want to keep, you know, maybe 2/3 into those, you know, I don't know, maybe 80%, something like that, 80%, so 40% Bitcoin, 40% Ethereum, and then maybe 20% leave it in Veritasium, maybe. Or I might just leave 10%, I don't know. The beautiful thing about this is, it's almost like this is a fantasy land where everybody wins. Everybody wins. Unlike the effing stock market and the commodities market where you lose. Oh, I'm up. JSEP4, 2008, I've got my futures contract in silver. I was playing the wheat, and then I was playing corn contracts, and I made a few bucks. I was up $300-400 in a few days. I got into silver. I was up another couple, $200-300. Boy, I can do this. I'm really doing it. Hey, this is great. Up $21. Bang, down to 17, you're crushed. Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers. What the F? What happened? Where's my money? Your money's gone. Your $3,500 gone, and you owe us $500 to make your account whole again because we put a, you know, your stop hit, but no, there were no buyers. So by the time there were buyers, it was $17. That's when you was finally able to execute the sell order. But that's way below what your account value had, since you're leveraged in a futures contract automatically. You owe us $500. Wow, so I just made several $100s in a very short period of time, as in like maybe a couple weeks. I mean, just barely playing around, and now it's all gone. $4,000 is gone. I have nothing to show for it. There's no silver. I have nothing. Yeah, that's it. That's how we play. For every loser, there's a winner, and guess who the winners are? It ain't you. It's not you. But wait a minute. There's these cryptocurrencies. They don't run or reside on that nonsense system that the club has set up, that they control completely, and they have ETFs to push the price around over here, and they've got futures contracts to push the price around over here, and if by chance the sheep will jump in with both hands and feet to buy a bunch of our futures contracts, that takes the power away from us. We just print an ass load more and outnumber them, and then flood the market in sell orders, and we crush them all the way down. Nobody can print paper Bitcoin and flood the market. They can't print paper Ethereum and flood the market. No, you either have the Ethereum or you don't. And since so many different people have it, there's not one entity out there, you know, holding all of it and can just dump it and kill everything. This is how a real, true, free market is supposed to go. And my God, all of us are becoming winners. How are we all becoming winners? This is absurd. We're not supposed to win. We're supposed to lose. Good day, sir. You lose. But all we're doing is winning. All we're doing is winning. And I'm getting to come out here and do these videos to tell you guys, guess what? Check this out. You may want to look into that. Check that coin out. Switch that coin for this coin. I think this might happen. Even if I'm wrong. You know what? I told you to get in this one. Yeah, it started going down. Sorry about that. But good news, just hang on to your position. In other words, hang on to the coin, don't do anything with it. In a matter of probably days, if not 1 or 2 days, it'll be right back to where it left off and back above, breaking a new high. That's how these things are going. So you can't lose. Worst case scenario, wait a little bit and the price goes back up. This is fantastic. And finding out 33 to 1 is now 10 to 1. And again, $230 today Dash is almost, again, if it was 240 it would be, is almost the equivalent of 4 times what I paid just, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Was it just 2 weeks ago I was telling you guys about this? Yeah, you may want to get into this. It was extremely difficult, but I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you how to do it anyways in case anyone wants to do this. It might be well worth it. And I had a bunch of people, I tried it, I did it, or hey, I'm stuck on this part, it's not letting me do that. What's that code? Let me go to my website where I pasted it. Here you go. Here's the code. Put that code there. Put this one over there. How about it? All right, thanks, man. Thanks, Snip. I got it. Everybody that has emailed me that did anything with Veritasium, you are going to be smiling right now when you see this video. Because you got in at roughly around the same time I did, which means you probably got yours for around $6, maybe 6 and some change, who knows? Somewhere around there. You might have even been lucky enough of the recent crashing of Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of them, and happened to get in then with Ethereum down in the 150, 60 range, and then got some Veritasium, not even when the ICO phase, but went onto his site and just clicked on the how to get it, the easy tutorial, whatever, where you can just create this account and whatever and transfer them without getting the discount, because you can't get the discount now anyways, the days are over for that. And you still might have said, man, I got these for $5. I have no idea. I haven't had any emails like that, but everybody's going to be real happy. You should be very happy with the news that I've just brought you. But wait, there's more from JSNIP4. It's probably about to get a whole lot better in Veritasium land as we get closer and closer to when these exchanges actually list it and you can actually trade it all over the place where it becomes common. That's the day you're going to be waiting for, when you might have a heart attack as to what the numbers did. Now I'm trying to think if someone emailed this to me, or if this was Bix Weir emailing it to me. It might have been, or it was. I think it was a conversation between me and Bix and Cliff, an email. Somebody's husband and wife. The husband made a play. It might have. What was it on? May have been Ripple. They listened to Cliff High's Webbot thing. The wife was like, oh, whatever, you know, like our wives always do. Oh, here we go. Be careful with that. Don't lose our money, you know. And then he showed the wife, here's what I sold it for. And she pissed her pants, literally. and whatever happiness, craziness, she pissed her pants when she saw $2,000 or $3,000 at like 2 cents Ripple, and then they sold in the 30-cent range. The lady pissed her pants. That would be a story I would tell you with a smile on my face. Guys, I came out here today and such, and Veritasium went up. It's $100, oh my God. And as I'm telling you this video, I just pissed myself, and I'm going to clean my car seat, you know. I would tell you that smiling the whole entire time, not even caring if anyone called me names for it. Just because of what just happened. You know, oh my God, just made a fortune on this stuff. So I wanted to share that with you, give you a bigger scenario where we might stand in the near future. Stand by, because things are about to get real interesting in the month of June. There will be some big ups and some big downs. But again, if you just buy and hold, you'll be fine. Some of you are going to try to play that market and get in at the top, or get out at the top and then wait for the pullback. And if you time it right, and you just might, and then get back in, it's going to ride right back up where it was and then go higher. And then it's going to do that kind of thing again. The key is when. What's the timing? And it's hard to figure this out. And as Cliff said, people who do that successfully are going to be made. Okay? I got to run. Take care.
Oops. I was back here as quick as I could. Alright, next up is Tim Pool with How to Be a Journalist and Get the Best Covfefe, or whatever the stuff is that Trump is going on about.
So I'm still here. I'm in Chantilly with Mr. Luke Rutkowski. He's down here covering Bilderberg, and I'm kind of doing the same thing, but I'm really interested in the journalism aspect of it. So right now, what we're going to do is something that many people have been asking for, is give you a look at some of our equipment that will help you get the best kafifi when you're out in the street.
We're gonna kafifi the crap out of this video.
Yeah, like we'll get the best kafifi. Luke's got the best kafifi here at. Okay, if you don't know what kafifi means, or is it kafif? Kafefi?
I like kafifi. Has a bit of ring to it.
Kafefe? Trump tweeted out COVFEFE, and a lot of people think that he was trying to say coverage, and it was like a typo. So now there's this big joke about kafifi. So what we're saying really is that you can get this equipment will help you get some really good coverage of what's happening. So
it's even a social media strategy which people use and misspell words, so people engage in it more and want to see it more and comment on it more. So
right. Well, yeah,
it's probably going to work for this video, and probably why you clicked on this video.
Well, because they saw kafifi and everyone's talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So people will sometimes misspell titles wrong because that makes other people want to click it and comment with the correct spelling, and it's a trick. Yeah. But first, let's start with the fundamental tool for doing journalism, which is
the beanie.
The beanie.
Secret weapon.
You can't do it without the beanie.
It's the power. It has everything behind it. But no, in reality, the best thing you have is, of course, cell phones. I have 3. I have a Galaxy S7. I have an iPhone 7.
You have a
iPhone 6S, which has been the most important one because the iPhone has made the incredible, idiotic mistake of not having an audio port in the camera. And all of my videos that I mainly shoot are done with cell phones because you could get the footage out there quickly, fast, in the moment. And when we're covering conflict zones, when we're covering mass protest, when we're covering historic moments, milliseconds matter on who will watch your stuff, who will share your stuff, and it's a great way to also interact and engage with your audience, which I try to do as much as I can with super chats and with regular chats, being able to talk to people, being able to access my Twitter, see what else people are seeing on the ground, get there fast, and get the video and photo up there before anyone else.
Almost nothing else matters, right? So look, we've got a ton of equipment here, tripods, DSLRs, microphones, drones. But the reality is 90% of your coverage when it comes to breaking news events, it's just going to be a smartphone.
Yeah.
Because this is how you communicate with people, it's how you share the story, it's how you live stream, it's how you shoot videos. So for me, I actually just have I have 3 phones, 2 one's a backup, I don't really use it. The iPhone is my main phone, and then I have the Galaxy S8. But phones are pretty obvious. Everybody knows about phones. Let's talk about some of the more secretive.
Well, I think there's also important stuff to address because with like the Galaxy that I have here, the video codecs and the video quality is not as good as the iPhone. Now the iPhone 7 does have better video, but again, that flaw kills it. I'm still using my iPhone 6S predominantly to do all my videos. I put it mainly on a monopod for stabilization, which I think is the most valued tool in my recent coverage is the monopod. I got a really sturdy one, so if I do interviews, I could just keep it there. But at mass protests like we were at the RNC and DNC when the anarchists were, the communists and RevCon were burning American flags, they usually set up all their members in a circle, everyone crowded, everyone has their cameras. And I usually have a lot of different cameras. I have a lot of different rigs. I have this little hunting tube, this little hunting attachment that I got and kind of custom made it for my phone. So if I'm live and something's happening and I need to protect myself, or if there's rocks being thrown, I just put it here and I'm able to run away and get everything live that's happening here. If the phone gets knocked out or if I don't have it, I always have a backup because you need a backup for a backup. And this thing, the monopod, the most important one. At the RNC, DNC, all the journalists are like trying to film and raise their hands, slurry people. Literally, all you do is just raise this thing up as high as you can and stand over them and, get the shot that no one else can. And with the latest developments with 360 cameras, like the Rohi 360 and the IO 360, same thing, it doesn't matter, it's all confusing. You're able to get 360 degrees virtual reality, intense footage as if people were there, and if you actually, add it with this, you're able to get the best shots and the best coverage. And, I've been doing this for over 10 years now. My stuff has been stolen by almost every single mainstream media company out there for a reason. It's the best stuff out there.
All right. So look, the monopod with a phone grip, really, really important for breaking news because you can get those angles. And the cell phone's so obvious. It's a wonderful little universal device for covering things. But what about doing interviews, right? You want to sit down and interview somebody. You've got a DSLR here.
Well, I did a very long feature piece that I still haven't edited in Italy, where I interviewed a person who was turned into a slave and was run through the human trafficking market. And when I do those interviews, also monopod. I don't have a cameraman. A lot of times we're independent. We can't afford a cameraman. We can't afford insurance. We can't afford sound guys in the crew. You have to do everything yourself. So you could simply place it on here, stabilize it. I have professional audio gear as well that I use for all my videos. But to kind of change things up, you could also add attachments to your iPhones, except for the iPhone 7 because they suck, and even the attachment that comes to this with the audio port that takes the main port away, the audio still sucks. That's why I still use my 6.7. I'm able to get a custom cable that is able to connect your professional microphones to your iPhones, and then you get really clear, good audio, which the iPhone lacks and is weak on.
So I'll address this specifically. One of the biggest problems with removing the headphone jack from the phone is that it was a universal adapter for more than just microphones. There are credit card readers that you'd plug into the headphone jack. There's LEDs you could plug into the headphone jack, and more importantly, there's audio equipment, microphones. It really was important, and I'm using the iPhone 7, and it sucks because I can't do microphones anymore. I used to be able to do that.
And you need good audio, because if you have alright video and crappy audio, people won't watch your videos. If you have good audio and crappy video, people are more likely to watch your videos because of that. And audio is key. You want to understand what people are saying. And I've been connecting my iPhone 6s, doing interviews just with myself, without a camera guy, without a sound guy. It's not easy doing this, especially in chaotic protest moments where we have Molotov cocktails flying at police officers, like we recorded in Paris, France just a few days ago, to be in those situations and to have to do everything yourself. But when I do interviews, I pretty much have this set up here. I have my microphone set up. I'm able to check audio levels. I'm able to move the camera around, so I have to be my own camera guy, my own sound guy, and the interviewer talking to the subject on interesting things that are happening in the field as it happens. And then one button uploads right away, and it's there for everyone to see in HD with pure audio, stabilized video. And I think that's something that is critically important. I know my quality could go up, but people have to understand we're doing all of our own post-production. Tim works his butt off. Tim edits like the beanie's steaming when he's in front of that computer editing those videos. He takes a lot of time. I find it difficult to even manage my time because I'm managing a separate entity. I'm managing a website. I'm managing other people. I'm trying to do the best I can. And I still have this footage that I shot days ago of this person who was made a slave in Libya and was transported to Italy. I still haven't put that together. It'll probably be out in a few days, but that's when I find time. Now I'm at Bilderberg. I'm interviewing people. I'm doing this interview. It's all non-stop trying to stay on top of it. So, I have no idea how Tim does it.
Well, with that, I want to talk about another really important tool. And it's this right here. Now, not specifically the GoPro 5. This is the GoPro 5. It's pretty great. It's waterproof. That means when it's raining, I can walk out and hold it, no problems. What I'm filming on right now, that this video is being made on, is the GoPro 4 Karma Grip, which actually I think I can just show you. Check this out.
Well, I can just do this too.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, there. So you can see I can move the base around.
The chicken head.
The chicken head, that's what we call it, the chicken head, because if you've ever seen a chicken head, you can move the body around and the head stays in the same place. Now, here's my secret. When I do interviews, I don't use my iPhone. I use the GoPro. Sometimes I'll just place the GoPro down, or actually I just shot a video with Luke where I actually just held the GoPro and turned it back and forth. The main thing is, quality isn't necessarily about the equipment you're using. Most phones can shoot 4K, beautiful video, or high frame rate 1080p. What it really comes down to is editing technique and style. And that is something you can't buy. That just takes practice and time.
And it's very personal, because when you're shooting something yourself, you want it to look a specific way. I can't tell you how many hours Tim has spent in front of the computer, and I have spent in front of the computer, being like, no, this one thing's not perfect. This not.
Oh yeah.
You become kind of
especially on longer pieces.
Exactly.
But so you've got this remote. This is a wireless mic.
Yeah. No, I really, I mean, it's professional audio equipment that I use, and I love this thing. It helped improve the quality of the video so much.
I don't even use audio equipment. Yeah. I have one thing here. Here, you want to unzip it?
Yeah, you showed me this, and we did this interview in Berkeley.
So
with these microphones.
This
cool.
is just an internal recorder, right? So it's a lav. It's wired, and it just records to itself. It's got a little memory card inside, and this is just a backup. Right now, the audio you're hearing is just on the GoPro. It really is good. I want to move away from the basic stuff, the kind of the obvious
I just want to
stuff.
say one thing, and you always want to back up for a backup. I can't tell you how many confrontations with major politicians and even Bilderberg members I had that I did, and then later checked, and all the audio was gone because the cable slightly just moved and adjusted from the main port. I mean, and you really have to be critical of this, and you really have to be. And when security's chasing me out and pushing me away, sometimes the cable just moves a little bit, audio gone. So I even started implementing a double audio source with my iPhone. When I have it here, I turn on the audio recorder, and I still go about my way. The audio's not great, but if this one fails, which sometimes it does, bam, you got a backup. This is my backup too. This is a body camera that I use. Anything and this is great because this is always on my shoulder. This is always ready. Anything happens, I just press one button. It makes a noise. Bam, I'm recording in intense situations that happen to me.
So here's an important thing, right? So I think the basics are pretty obvious. A phone, you can do everything with your phone. The iPhone shoots beautiful video, and you really can edit that beautifully. But let's talk about some style. And so for that, I've got this little thing I just showed you a few days ago, and this is a drone. With this, I can fly in most places, even if it's a no-fly zone, because this is a micro drone. It weighs less than the minimum weight for drone regulation. When it comes to regular drones, this is the Mavic, and this is my personal recommendation. A lot of the footage you've seen me use has come from this, though most of my drone footage has actually been the GoPro Karma. I've since been using the Mavic Pro, which is by far my favorite drone out of anything I've ever used. So when it comes to drone shots, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. You're mostly going to get just video, no audio, and it's going to be beautiful panning aerial shots. I don't recommend using these in big breaking news situations because it's really, really dangerous, though a lot of people are doing it. I would not recommend it.
Yeah, there's a couple of people killed by drones, like the
Really?
professional racing drones.
There
was someone in my neighborhood in Brooklyn who was flying a helicopter and chopped his head off.
Yeah.
These things are serious.
Well,
and there's a lot
this
of
won't chop your head
liability,
off.
and you need insurance, and then the legal aspects are still being figured out. It's too much of a headache for me to even partake in.
Not for me.
Especially with the gear, but not for Tim.
So here's the last thing I want to get into. We've got 3 360 cameras here, and this, to me it's a bit of a gimmick, but this right here is the Samsung Gear 360. There's a newer version out. This is a 4K 360 camera, and this is what I've used to shoot some of my virtual videos. Luke, you've got the Ricoh Theta 360. This can actually live stream. You can plug in an HDMI and live stream to various platforms.
But you need a computer and all the right cables and accessories. This just plugs in right to the phone. And I also got this attachment that lets me automatically flip the phone up, and then I could put this in there right there, and it's ready to go live.
And that will do a 360 live video.
Yeah, we just played around with that yesterday on my channel. We did a little tech review on mostly just your drones and talking about Bilderberg outside of the main lobby with the security guards looking a little nervous at us. This is also, just wanted to say, this is the IO 360. I just got this. It just pretty much came out. It is very sensitive. So I just, slightly moved the camera yesterday, automatically disrupted the whole entire live broadcast. So it's not going to be good in live action, especially if I'm moving around to get those shots. I'd rather depend on this and then upload it later to my phone, to the YouTube channel, or to my Facebook page.
Now, the final thought, because we are going a little long, is that all of these tech gimmicks, right? 360 camera drones, you don't need any of it. If you want to make good high quality stuff, you want to make a beautiful edit, cinematic, you'll notice that some of the videos I do, I put a lot of effort into the intros and some of the transitions. But the reality is, good content is about the conversation, the ideas expressed, and the locations, the breaking news, and you can do that with just your phone. That's the secret. So my bit of advice to anybody is not to worry about the equipment, because a lot of people always ask me, Tim, what equipment are you using? And the reality is, as much as we do have some cool stuff here, you can do it all with just a cell phone. A cheapo cell phone for even $50 is going to get you a high definition camera, and that's all you need. Well, you need that, you need some motivation.
And fearlessness and not giving a damn what people think about you, even like the comments that have been saying that I'm balding and worn out and old and wrinkly.
You're old news.
It doesn't bother me.
So,
but also, just most importantly, just having a passion for information, making videos that you think will help benefit your audience, that will teach your audience something, that will help them see and understand something from a different perspective. And I think that's what's different between independent media and mainstream media, which is corporately sponsored and bought off. A lot of these mainstream media journalists are alcoholics or drug addicts, and they don't care, they have no passion for this. No, seriously, I hung out with a bunch of journalists. A lot of them are drunks.
Sure,
sure. Because they're jaded, because they're doing something that they're not passionate about.
But we're not.
They're doing what they're being told to do. A lot of times they're shilling. And
right. Okay. I'm gonna stop.
They have to put their sorrows away.
Okay.
Sorry, a little personal tirade there.
You know, I rag on the mainstream media, right, and some of these journalists, but as much as I have had my quarrels with all these people,
they're all alcoholics.
let's just say this: it's better to encourage them and to be respectful, right? I'm not perfect, but let's convince them to pick up the slack and improve themselves, and we do that with honey and not vinegar.
Of course, I just like the humor in this, but I find it when we're doing stuff that is done because we care about them. We go where we want to because we want to cover a story to inform you. They do something because they're told, and that's the main difference between me and Tim and anyone else who has an owner who has a boss. So support us on Patreon, patreon.com/wearechange, and Tim has Patreon as well.
Luke,
youtube.com/wearechange, twitter.com/wearechange. Support Tim as well. He's an awesome independent journalist. I'm happy he's finally free and doing the important stories that he's been wanting. I've been pushing him. I'm pushing everyone I know. Go independent. Go free.
I'm doing the same thing.
We could only do that with your support, with you sharing, liking, commenting, and of course donating to real independent media.
So, thank you all so much for watching. You know, I much prefer to travel and do stories about what's happening around me, but I thought this one was important because a lot of people, I'm trying my hardest to encourage people to become independent journalists, to get involved, and I've gotten a ton of messages asking what equipment I'm using. This is a perfect opportunity to showcase what Luke uses, what I use, how we feel, and the best ways to do this. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope this helped. I hope this video will be a resource, at least for the next, whatever time period until the technology all changes again. But hopefully, at least for a year or so, this could be a resource for you to look at, see how we do our things, and I will have updates when new equipment comes in. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button because it really does help. Comment below. Let me know what you think. Maybe you know some stuff that we don't. There might be some technology that we don't know about that we should know about. Let me know. Stay tuned. New videos every day, 4 p.m. Thank you all so much for hanging out and watching. Again, I will see you all tomorrow.
Mainstream media is all drunks.
Those were two of the best to listen to some years ago, without a doubt. They were awesome. Both of them was. Alrighty, up next is one from Monograph titled "Evie and Randy Quaid Exonerated."
How's everybody doing today? I certainly hope you're doing well. For the people that do not know who these people are in this photograph, to the left is Evie Quaid and to the right is Randy Quaid. Now, for those of you that remember back in the day when the mainstream media press, all of the different websites and magazines and all these characters are running around dragging these people's names through the mud. It was horrible, especially TMZ. And Jimmy Kimmel making all kinds of jokes. Oh, it's such a laughing matter. So let me just give you the short version in case you didn't know. Years and years and years back, somebody decided that they were going to steal Mr. Randy Quaid's house. So what they did was they forged the documents. Everything was forged. In other words, Mr. Randy Quaid's home was deeded to someone else without his knowledge initially at first. He didn't know anything about it. Not only that, they turned right back around and they accused him of all this other cockamamie nonsense, because when both Evie and Randy Quaid started to get on the trail of something's wrong, then a bunch of nonsense was created and they were destroyed. I mean, it was horrible. It was horrible. And here's the thing, it could have happened to anyone, and it could happen to anyone in the future, because the power of the press is so monstrous that there is nobody on this earth that could escape that sort of defamation. There is no way. From all of the mainstream media newscasters out there, magazines, websites, papers, you name it. Not only that, Randy Quaid's royalty revenue stream was being rerouted to somebody else as well. So instead of him making money off the movies that he had created, made, and was acted in the past, so every time somebody purchases a movie or they rent a movie or whatever it is they do, then all the actors, the actresses, and the studios and the producers and the writers and, you know, the crew and the grips and all those people, they get a royalty if it's in their contract. Well, his royalty revenue stream was being rerouted from his name into somebody else's name that had a similar name. And like I stated, when Evie Quaid and Randy started sniffing around and investigating their own situation, they were attacked ferociously by all of these different people and media outlets, TMZ to be exact. They're like the guiltiest party in all of this as far as I'm concerned. And then everybody else ran with it because they didn't know the facts. Right? Now, the reason why I mention this is because a private investigator by the name of Mr. Opperman out of the state of Nevada was on his podcast making a big old joke about it, like it's funny, but it's not funny. Let me ask the public a question here. If, let's say, one of your family members needed to have open heart surgery, and you started perusing around, you started Googling doctors that perform open heart surgery. Or maybe you needed to have your vehicle looked at, so you needed to hire a mechanic that specialized in whatever it is the problem you had with your car or your truck. And you came across videos of the surgeon that does open heart surgery. And he's telling you all about what he does, but within his podcast or within his video, he's begging for money, begging for donations. Are you going to hire that surgeon for open heart surgery if he's begging for money on the internet? I was just curious. That's an honest question. I mean, that is an honest question. We're not talking about a blogger. We're not talking about a nobody. We are talking about a supposed professional. I would not hire, in my personal opinion, I would not hire a private investigator that every single podcast that he's on, where he's begging for money, to investigate anything for me. I wouldn't hire him to investigate a dirty sock. There is no way. Because it doesn't look right. It doesn't seem right. If the guy is so professional in whatever it is he's doing, then why is he begging for donations? Maybe he's not that professional. Maybe he's not getting the business in which he should, or he purports that he has gotten in the past, does not hold true as in today. Right? Yes, that's exactly right. So here you have Mr. Opperman a a Nevada private investigator making a big old joke about this and suggesting that Randy Quaid did this or suggested. It's not funny. That's first of all. There's nothing funny about it. There's nothing funny about a man and a woman that wake up one day and suddenly their house isn't their house anymore. It's been stolen out from under them. And the documents, in order to do it, were forged to do it. And then when people get wind of it, they're destroyed within the media because all of the different individuals involved have power or they have connections. And in this case as well, Hillary Clinton was involved, and so was John Kerry. Both of those individuals were Secretary of State of the United States. So let me ask anybody in the land, if you're a reporter, if you're a doctor, if you're a mechanic, if you're a private investigator, I mean a real one, a real professional one. I'm not talking about the ones that are begging for donations. I'm talking about an actual one, right? Somebody that works in finances, a banker, somebody that's a CFO of a company, somebody that is an executive, somebody in marketing. I don't care what your position is in life. Let me ask you a question. Do you truly believe that you could bounce back after such an assault by the mainstream media and all the entertainment media throughout the United States and throughout the entire world, dragging your name right through the mud on something you didn't even do to cover up for yet another crime somebody else did? Could you bounce back? I don't think you could. I don't think you could. Because you see, the damage is already done. Who's going to take responsible? Who's going to take responsibility for all of the words that were written against the Quaids as cover for somebody else's theft of their home and Randy Quaid's royalty revenue streams? Who's going to take responsible for the loss of their home, their reputation, their finances? Who's going to take responsibility for that? Is TMZ going to come out and make a public apology? Is the Daily Beast going to come out and make a public apology? Is the Vanity Fair going to come out and make a public apology? Is Jimmy Kimmel going to come out and make a public apology? Is CNN and Fox and MSNBC, ABC, CBS, are they going to come out and make a public apology for dragging these people's names through the mud because they thought it was entertaining or funny? It's also ridiculous. And you have this private investigator days ago running his mouth in his podcast, and he's supposed to be a professional private investigator, yet he can't even investigate the actual facts surrounding what has happened to these people? And people might say, oh, well, Monty, geez, what's the big deal? Excuse me. These people had a life, and because of somebody else's criminal activity, it was all stripped away from them. They were somebody that were turned quickly into an absolute nobody within just a couple of weeks because of someone else's criminal activities. But how do we know that? Well, because just recently, a forensic loan examiner investigated the issue dealing with their property. And she found that, in fact, these are facts, that the documentation dealing with the deed, Randy Quaid's house, was in fact forged. And she is requesting an investigation in Santa Barbara. But who is this woman? And how do we know, Monty, she is what she says she is? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you've ever heard of that word called affidavit. You know what that is? Let's go ahead and read an affidavit of the individual in which I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and do that now. The woman that conducted the investigation dealing with Evie and Randy Quaid's home and property is Marie McDonald. All right? She is a mortgage fraud and forensic analyst and a credited certified fraud examiner. She's also the founder and managing member of Truth in Lending, Audit, and Recovery Services, LLC of Brewster, Massachusetts. She's been in the business for 26 years in transactional analysis, mortgage auditing, and mortgage fraud investigation. Goes on to say she's a president and chief executive officer of McDonald Property Analytics Incorporated, a litigation support and research firm that provides mortgage-backed securities research services, foreclosure, forensics, and forensic title examinations to attorneys, that's plural, nationwide. Wow. And this woman has just recently stated, Miss McDonald has recently stated that after her investigation dealing with the Quaid property, that in fact his deed was forged. So this means, ladies and gentlemen, that Evie and Randy Quaid were telling the truth all along. But I tell you what, there's a handful of people that knew that in 2015. Yeah. Because we did our own investigation into every stitch of that information. We sure the hell did. And people might think to themselves, oh, well, come on, man, you're just a nobody. Exactly. We're all nobodies. That's what you're not understanding, buddy. We're all nobodies. Every last one of us are nobodies. You think you're somebody? You think you got it going on? Oh, I make $1 million. Shut up. I don't care. I don't care. That means nothing to me. It don't mean nothing. It's a joke because all of it can be taken away from you, just like it was taken away from the Quaids because of somebody else's criminal activity, because all these other people covered for these other producers that were involved in the theft of their property. Wow. Amazing. And it went all the way up the chain of command in the United States government, dealing with both Secretary of States of the United States, one being Hillary Clinton and the other being John Kerry. Wow. That is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So do you suppose all of these entertainment media companies are going to come out and make a big apology? Absolutely not. I can't imagine they would. Do you think they're going to report on any investigation that is opened up in Santa Barbara? Maybe at the county clerk's office? Do you think anybody's going to cover that story? Probably not. Because if they did, they would be admitting that they dragged their names through the mud unjustly. And it wouldn't give those apparatuses very good credibility because of what they've already done. Is that right? Yeah, that would be right. So for all you people out there that ever made all your condescending comments against the Quaids, because you thought you were all that, because you read some article on the Daily Beast or TMZ or People magazine or who knows what magazine or some article somewhere because they said that they did this or they did that, and they really get a grip on yourself. Do I believe that that this will end up in somebody's arrest or somebody's going to go to jail behind it? No, because it never happens like that, does it? You got proof that somebody forged the paperwork, the deed. They stole his house. There's proof of it now. But because there's so much money involved, because the individuals involved in this, man, you just don't know what money is. These people have their hands on billions of dollars within the entertainment industry. So do you think somebody's going to go to prison behind this? Absolutely not. I would be shocked if they did. Because that's the name of the game in this country. If you got the money, you can buy your way out of anything. And if you don't have the money, but you have this pretentious position, I'm a private investigator, but hey, can you donate me $6? Please? Pretty please, with sugar on top? Pretty please? Just $6. Come on, I'm a professional. I'm a professional private investigator. I swear I am. I mean, I've cracked so many cases. Give me $6. Can you do it? Just donate 5. Can you do 5? Just 5. You see how ridiculous that sounds? Yeah. So, Mr. Opperman, the next time you decide to laugh at a situation that you know nothing about, obviously, before you sit down and have your little podcast, because that's what it is. It's a podcast. It's not even a show. I mean, a radio show would be somebody like, WBAI, I think it would be. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. You don't work there. That's right. Because they didn't hire you. And maybe the reason why they didn't hire you, sir, is because they watched 5 of your videos and they noticed that the 5 videos that they watched, you're begging for money on the internet. And they probably didn't find that to be very professional. Consequently, they didn't hire you. Is that a possibility? Yes, that is a possibility. So, as you're sitting there in your high chair, condescending against the Wades like it's funny, like it's a laughing matter, which it's not, well, maybe, just maybe, you can call up Marie McDonald and you can interview her on your show. And she can give you the full scoop of how the Quades had their own home stolen from them. Maybe you could investigate what actually happened to these people. Maybe you could conduct an actual investigation like Marie McDonald had done instead of begging for donations on the internet. Okay? Yeah. It's not funny, Mr. Opperman. It never was funny, Mr. Opperman. And it's not funny now, Mr. Opperman. Okay? I think the best thing that you can do is just stick to begging for money on the internet. If that's working for you, rather than doing actual investigations, instead of laughing at the Quades, just go back to begging for money on the internet. Instead of doing actual investigations, if you will. Okay? Yeah. Anyway, for everybody else, please chime in. I'm Monograph, and if you can't speak freely or simply not free, have a good day.
Alrighty. Pardon me. Hang on, I'm looking for it. Alrighty, here is We Are Change with Will Donald Trump be at the 2017 Bilderberg meeting?
This is Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org, and just a few feet in front of us is the location of the Westfields Marriott, where the 2017 Bilderberg meeting will take place. In this video, we're going to be talking about a lot of important issues when it comes to Bilderberg and the Trump administration. And to join me with that, we have Charlie Skelton, an excellent, amazing researcher. He's done tremendous work for The Guardian before. And I just wanted to talk to you. A lot of people are speculating if Trump is even going to show up this year. As we know, Obama and Hillary, many people believe that they came last year when the Bilderberg meeting was here in Chantilly, Virginia, when Barack Obama especially left the press on his plane, left him running where he was, when he was very close to Chantilly, Virginia. Many people are saying Trump may come this year. 4 close associates, 2 personal aides, H.R. McMaster, are on the official list. What do you make of all this with Bilderberg being held this year so close to Washington, D.C.?
Well, hello, Luke. And yeah, who knows? Maybe he will come because Cameron came in 2013. He came for dinner on Saturday night. And so, yeah, it's entirely possible Trump will come. As you say, there's Team Trump is here in some numbers. Yeah, so the Commerce Secretary is coming, Wilbur Ross, and as you said, McMaster, and yeah, his new New Zealand Director of Strategic Initiatives or something. So yes, there's a big Trump presence, and top of the agenda is the Trump administration a progress report. So he's going to get his grades from Bilderberg.
This is why I wanted to talk to Charlie, because the official list and agenda of the Bilderberg meeting has officially come out. And we have very fascinating and interesting names. It's also very interesting to note that InfoWars, that used to treat Bilderberg like the Super Bowl, is nowhere in sight. And we did see them have a very pro-Donald Trump kind of coverage in the last few years. But it's very interesting to see this kind of collusion with globalists. But with the people attending this year, it's not also very close associates to Donald Trump. It's also the CEO of CERN, the person responsible for the Hydra Collider. And we're kind of seeing a transition from Bilderberg with the old plutocratic guard, with the Rockefellers and Zbigniew Brzezinski is passing away, kind of being taken over by the new technocrats. What do you take it from the CEO of CERN being here and so many people from the tech aspect in society?
Well, there's also a physicist, an academic that's come, I think Italian, and so that it looks like they're going to have one session, on some kind of far out physics and stuff, which might, maybe it's for entertainment, maybe it's, Bilderberg's staying in touch with the very latest in technology, which is what they seem to be good at, and yeah. So, and you mentioned InfoWars. I mean, I hope they do show up. I really do, because they've covered this event so assiduously for years, and it would be a shame if they didn't. And of course, there's a Trump associate, Peter Thiel, inside, on the steering committee. So standing outside doesn't mean you're necessarily anti-Trump.
Yeah, and close associates as well, like Henry Kissinger. And as we know from previous years,
that's what I was going to say. Yes, so you mentioned Kissinger. We were talking earlier that Kissinger came to the White House and met with Trump about, I think it was May the 10th. And said, they discussed Russia and other things, and maybe one of the other things was, coming along to Bilderberg. It's possible.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially with the CEO of CERN, especially with kind of the technocratic agenda that's been pushed. A lot of people connected to life extension technology, to transhumanism. So, and we've seen a lot of weird updates with the advancement of technology and a lot of weird talk from the tech community about the possibilities of the future. So it is definitely fascinating to see Bilderberg, an institution such as influential as they are, who even admit that this is where, in their own words, they set the agenda for kind of world events. What do you make of the list this year and the agenda this year that officially came out?
Well, firstly, to come back to your talking about tech, it's very interesting to see how Bilderberg has positioned itself much more closely with the tech community, with Eric Schmidt from Google and Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn and Craig Mundy, who were formerly at Microsoft. So they've really taken the tech people to heart, and now they're right there at the center, and they have people like Alex Karp from Palantir, who's one of Peter Thiel's kind of, I was going to say henchman, that makes them sound evil, but lieutenant, so might be better. They're extremely open and forward-looking, for something that's stayed so essentially the same. If you look at the formats of 1950s Bilderbergs to today, almost nothing has changed. I mean, now Rockefeller's dead, so he won't be there. But even you had a continuity of people, and obviously you've got Henry Kissinger, still there, age 94, still doing one-handed press-ups, I'm sure, by the breakfast buffet. And yes, it's very interesting to see how Bilderberg moves with the times. This year, there's a few things that jump out at me from the agenda, and one of them is what they call the war on information. And if you look at the list, there's a huge number of journalists and correspondents and media owners and newspaper owners and editors, I think more than usual. More than there'll be from the mainstream news outside Bilderberg, which is kind of crazy. But yes, the fake news is definitely one of the hot topics.
It's definitely something that's very concerning. They also had something about nationalism in there, and then globalism, how to stop the spread of globalism, supposedly, which is very duplicitous since it's a meeting full of globalists, and it makes no sense.
The high priests of globalization, as Will Hutton called them, yeah.
Can you just go off with some of the other members that are coming this year and some of the agenda items this year that really stick out to you?
Certainly the head of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, he's a big name. He's been before. The head of NATO seems now like a permanent fixture around the table. He's coming to discuss, what was it, bullets, bytes and bucks or something like that, which seems a very tabloid way of describing NATO, but clearly it's a response to Trump going to NATO headquarters and kind of berating the European heads of NATO and saying, come on, cough up more money, and doing his kind of Trumpian galumphing around there. And so I think Stoltenberg will feed back on that, and they'll just, so NATO's like number 2 on the list, or number 3, along with the kind of future of the transatlantic relationship, which in the Trump era is looking a little bit more fragile. And so you have the sort of suave European technocrats not really having much in common with this kind of doofus.
And as we know, the steering committee member, David Yan, a part of the Bilderberg Group, bragged how the Bilderberg Group was very important for the formation of the euro, and also kind of bringing Europe and the United States together. It's always been Bilderberg, kind of a meeting of the elites between Europe and the United States. This year it's more of a technocratic kind of sphere that's happening, but it's really interesting to see how they list their agendas, because it's almost as shrouded in mystery and kind of generalizations as much as the official Bilderberg meeting. What do you expect this year? Because sometimes you can look at the agenda, you could kind of look at the people. What do you think they're looking most forward to? What do you think are some of the objectives that they could probably be trying to go for or talk about at the meeting?
I mean, their big question is with Europe. What do we do with Europe? What do we do with the transatlantic relationship? Because post-Brexit, Europe is looking, not quite as robust as it was. And you remember with the Brexit vote, there were people who were on the steering committee of Bilderberg who were out on on their soapboxes. They got out there saying Remain, 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 and it didn't go their way. They've licked their wounds and they've come back. And if you look at the French election, you look at the French cabinet now, and you can see the hand of Bilderberg there. I mean, you only have to look at the background to Macron and how his organisation took root from the Institut Montaigne, the president of which is the president of Bilderberg, Henri de Castries. So basically, last year was the year where they kind of sorted out France, and around that, the French-German relationship, they seem to be trying to rebuild Europe without the UK. So it's really that. It's trying to work out where they're going and who with.
Yeah. And this is extremely important for the Bilderberg Group, especially since Angela Merkel's watershed moment and her comments that she just made a few days ago, where she says she can't rely on the United States. The France aspect is also fascinating. As we know, Macron was at Bilderberg before he became president of France. He was also a former Rothschild banker. It's all one small club. Charlie, I want to thank you for all your research. Your work will be up. I'm going to put your Twitter handle in the description below, D-Uke or something. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything else you're looking forward to the coverage of Bilderberg? Because it seems like security has taken the very nice approach with us, especially at the hotel. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of people here. A lot of major independent media are not here. I don't expect much mainstream media coverage, but this is very important. What do you look forward to, and any last final words?
I just look forward to the mainstream media covering it how they should, because you look at the agenda this year, it's incredibly newsworthy. It's so the news headlines, they read like the 1, 2, 3 of the agenda read like CNN news headlines. They really do. So I really hope that the mainstream news will show up and won't just be you.
They're more optimistic than I am, but we'll gladly do the job for them here on youtube.com/weirdchange. If you enjoyed this video, share it. Let me know what you guys thought.
I think that's Henry Kissinger manifesting just over there.
Yes, it is stormy and rainy. It is stormy and rainy here at Bilderberg. What a surprise. But we're going to be here live on the ground. Check out Charlie Skelton's work in the description below on his Twitter, and stay tuned. We're going to have live video coverage here on the ground live for you, real independent media that is supported and financed by you. Thank you again so much for watching. Love you guys.
Alrighty. Let's see here. Alrighty, X22 Report had one titled, "This is Why the Dollar Empire is About to Fall."
Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1294A, and today's date is May 31st, 2017, and the title of the episode is, "This is Why the Dollar Empire is About to Fall." Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, out in the UK, we can see that the UK is negotiating with the EU to exit. And we know that the central banking system, well, they don't want anyone exiting their system. And if you would like to exit, well, you need to pay up and you need to abide by all our demands. And right now, we can see that the negotiations, well, they're not going too well. And we see that there are EU documents that break down to the smallest item that the EU is demanding. Now, when we look at this, we can see that this is going to be a non-starter for the UK side. In the two policy papers, the bloc has elaborated its stance on the Brexit bill and citizens' rights. No detail is too small. Britain is even on the hook for funding teachers at the elite European schools that educate EU civil servant children. On the citizens' rights, the EU spells out in greater detail the protections it wants to secure for nearly 5 million people on the wrong side of the Brexit, 3.5 million EU nationals in the UK, and 1.2 million Britons on the continent. The document stresses the European Court of Justice must have full jurisdiction for ruling on disputes about citizens' rights, while the European Commission ought to have full power for monitoring whether the UK is upholding the bargain. Diplomats on the EU side say they cannot contemplate scaling back any of these demands, and they will not. So it looks like the UK can do one or two things. They can go along and they can bargain with the EU and try to meet all these demands, or they can exit without signing an agreement. And it looks like they might be heading in this direction. We need to remember one thing. The EU exports more to the UK than vice versa. And it looks like the UK has the upper hand in all of this. And we'll have to see how this plays out. But we can see what the central banking system is trying to do. They're trying to keep them in line. And they're trying to keep a hold of the UK. Now, here in the United States, we are seeing the economy completely break down. And from today's data and from all the information that is coming out, the system is deteriorating at an accelerated pace, and it's getting worse as time goes on. Now, this is all part of the plan to collapse the economy, and they're just letting it go. And ever since they started raising the rates, we can see this was part of the central banking plan. We see already that Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, they're already warning that their revenue will be down as much as 15%. And moving forward throughout this year, it's not going to improve. We had something very interesting happen today. The Chicago PMI stats came out today around 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And they reported that the index, well, it fell from 57 to 55.2. This is the lowest since January of 2017. And it looked like the Chicago PMI was declining. And then all of a sudden, at 11:21 Eastern Standard Time, there was a correction. And they said, oh, no, it's not declining. It's improving. And they gave us the manipulated numbers of 59.4. It looks like they let out the real numbers, and then they realized what they did, and they revised the numbers and reissued the numbers saying this is a correction, which I thought was very interesting. Now, in the real estate market, we see the pending home sales, well, they have tumbled to 5.4% year on year. This is the biggest drop in pending home sales since August of 2014. This is the second monthly drop in a row, which is a negative 1.3 month on month. Now, what we're looking at is we're looking at new home sales declining, existing home sales declining. We are seeing pending home sales declining. During this period of the year, spring going into summer, this is supposed to be the good time for real estate. And we discussed this many, many times before. What we're seeing is a complete breakdown of the system. And it looks like the real estate market is going to crash. Now, what we need to realize is that there are bubbles everywhere. There are bubbles in the real estate market. The Case-Shiller Index that looks at these 20 cities, they've blown up the bubbles in some areas way above what it was back in 2008. Now, Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari is out there saying that, listen, we can't tell if there's a bubble. We have a very hard time spotting the bubbles. Remember Ben Bernanke? He says, yeah, we can't tell if there's bubbles. We can't spot them. And this is when he was telling us there was no recession, forecasting any type of recession in the year of 2008. And in the year of 2008, all the bubbles popped and we were in a recession. So they're trying to convince us that they can't figure out where the bubbles are. And if we look at the 20 different cities, we're not going to look at all of them, but if we look at most of them, we can see that there are bubbles. Let's look at the Case-Shiller U.S. Home Price Index. Well, as we can see, we are way above the housing bubble back in 2008. If we look at different areas, like in Boston, the housing bubble right now is 9% above the peak of 2005. If we look at Seattle, the housing bubble right now is 13% above the peak back in July of 2007. If we look at Denver, it is 38% above the housing bubble back in August of 2006. If we look at Dallas-Fort Worth, it is 37% above the housing bubble back in June of 2007. Atlanta, the same thing. Portland, the same thing. San Francisco, the same thing. New York, the same thing. So when we look at this, we can see where the bubbles are. We're above that bubble range, which tells us on the way down, it is going to be a disaster. And remember, these bubbles were propped up not by the everyday American. It was propped up with free money, hedge funds, and most of these places that are out there, they're completely empty. No one's even living in them. Some are rented, but these hedge funds have purchased thousands upon thousands of homes. Foreign buyers came in and they bought them as investments. Rent them if you can, hold on to them, let them go up in value. And when this comes down, it's going to be a complete disaster. And we can see these bubbles from a mile away. So can the Fed. They're lying. They're the ones who created the bubbles, but they want to pretend that we don't see anything. Now, we see a bubble in the tech market. There are 10 companies that are responsible for half of the entire S&P rally year to date, with the top 5: Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft. They have accounted for nearly 40% of returns. And we're starting to see the first crack in the tech bubble right now. Investors, they have pulled more than $716 million from the most popular technology exchange traded fund last week. And this fund is the Technology Select Sector. And what we're seeing is huge outflows because the bubble is at its top, and what people and what companies and what investors and what speculators normally do, insiders normally do, is they remove their funds because they realize it's time to get out. We are seeing this in the stock market. We're seeing it in the real estate market. We're seeing it everywhere. They are leaving and trying to get the everyday retailer in to take the hit. Now, Molden Economics, they are warning that the next recession may be a complete reset of all asset valuations. He says we are coming to a period I call the Great Reset. As it hits, we'll have to deal one way or another with the largest twin bubbles in the history of the world. One of those bubbles is the global debt, especially government debt. The other is the even larger bubble of government promises. In the next recession, if revenues drop by the same percentage as they did in the last recession, without even counting likely higher expenditures this time, well, what we're going to see is massive deficits because we will have the loss of the tax revenue, and it's going to be a complete disaster. The catalyst could be a European recession that spills over into the U.S., or it might be one triggered by a U.S. monetary and fiscal mistake, or a funding crisis in China, or an emerging market meltdown. Whatever the cause, the next recession will be just as global as the last one, and there'll be more buildup of debt and more political and economic chaos. The Great Reset will also bring an increase to volatility, and the correlation among asset classes will once again approach 1.0, as it did during 2008 and 2009. The recession is going to be so deep, actually it's going to be a collapse, that we will have a complete reset of all asset valuations. And we can see right now we are headed in this direction. I mean, there are so many people out there calling for a collapse of the system. There are cycles, David Stockman, Charles Nenner, Harry Dent, Cliff High, many others are saying that, yes, we are headed for a system breakdown. And we can see it. We can see what is happening in the everyday people's economy. When you look around, you see stores closing. You see more and more houses for sale. There's no traffic. You see the housing bubbles have been blown up to the top, and they're getting ready to pop. And again, this is the plan of the central bank. This is the plan of Trump. Now, we have to remember, Trump is in office right now, and he is preparing us for this transition. And the only way to do this is to cut off the funding from the central bank, because this is how the deep state survives. Remember, the deep state is intertwined into government. They have their claws in everything. They've been there for quite a while. They've been listening into all conversations. They are trying to find something on Trump, and they're doing whatever they possibly can. And Fitch came out with a warning saying that the most plausible scenario for the dollar being meaningfully displaced does not begin with the emergence of a viable alternative, but rather it being undermined right here in the U.S. And they are right, because what Trump is doing right now, he is doing many of the things behind the scenes. And it's not just Trump. There are many other individuals that are working with him. And remember, he needs to tread lightly through all of this, because the deep state, they will try to stop him at every turn. And it doesn't mean that this plan is going to work. Just like the central bank's plan, the deep state plans don't always work. But we can see that they are moving in this direction. Now, one way they're trying to cut off the funding and bring the system down and to remove the dollar is they're trying to pass two pieces of legislation. And they're working their way through Congress. One is called the Federal Reserve Transparency Act, and the other is the Financial Choice Act. Now, the first would allow the Government Accountability Office to audit the monetary policy decisions of the Fed and make subsequent recommendations for administrative or legislative action. Now, this is not the surface level audits. This is a deep audit to find out what the Fed has been up to. The second would restrict the Fed's ability to provide financial sector support to avert or address a crisis and empower a commission to review and recommend changes to the Fed's operations, as well as to consider a rules-based rather than a discretionary monetary policy framework. Basically, what these pieces of legislation are doing is that they're going to be taking control of the Federal Reserve. And this needs to be done. Now remember, this is part of the plan to counter the deep state. And again, the deep state is going to try to maneuver and they're going to try to stop this. Now, if these pieces of legislation are implemented, the proposal would diminish the appeal of the dollar as a reserve currency over time. Investors considering dollar assets and other dollar exposures would weigh the risk of political interference in a monetary policy decisions and the possibility of the Fed's remit being broadened to include congressional priorities such as indirect funding of infrastructure investment. Now, those individuals that are supporting the FRTA and the FCA, they argue that the risks identified by those concerned about the Fed's independence and incidentally the dollar's global role are in fact the purpose of the proposed legislation. So Fitch is warning that if the world is granted more transparency into the Fed and what it does and how it works, it would end the U.S. hegemony. And the U.S. would lose its place as the sole dominant geopolitical superpower. And this is what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to rework the system. They're trying to get this legislation passed. And remember, there are many things happening all at once. And just like someone working in a corporation and you're trying to change things in a corporation, especially when you have everyone fighting against you, you just can't come out and say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I don't care what you say. Because we could see this didn't work. Just like in government. Actually, government's even worse. Trump tried in the beginning to make deals and work with the deep state because I think in his mind that he thought that he'd be able to work as a businessman with these individuals. But these individuals are not businessmen or businesswomen. These individuals are part of a deep state system where they want what they want, and they talk in absolutes. And they don't see any gray areas. The gray area is the negotiation. They don't see any of this. So Trump has completely changed his tactic right now. And you can see bit by bit, he needs to unravel and remove what the deep state has done. And one of those ways, and remember, it's not just him, he's working with other individuals that are with him on this. They're trying to cut off the funding of these individuals because that's the only way you can destroy them. And this is what they're trying to do right now. And in the process, they will get rid of the central bank. Now, this will have a cascading effect, of course, because that threatens the dollar as the reserve currency. It removes the central bank. which puts the whole system into chaos. And this is where we are headed right now. Now remember, Trump was out in Saudi Arabia, he was out in the Middle East, and we can see right now OPEC has come up with a new strategy to balance their oil market. Now remember, Saudi Arabia has been speaking to Russia. Trump has also sent a representative to the China's Belt and Road Conference. And we can see right now that OPEC, well, they have a new strategy to balance the oil market, and it's to cut oil exports to the U.S., a move intended to drain near record high crude oil inventories. OPEC originally thought the 6 months of combined production cuts would be sufficient to balance the oil market, but the market still looks oversupplied. So in a global marketplace, why does it really matter where the Saudis send their oil? In terms of a global supply, a barrel sent to Asia is the same as a barrel exported to the U.S. But the difference is that the U.S. has real-time data on crude oil storage, unlike most other places in the world. And that data is publicly available. So they're going to use this, and they're going to experiment by cutting off oil to the United States, bringing down the amount of oil that is being brought into the United States, which means we might see oil prices move up a little bit from this. But we'll have to see how this all turns out. And I think behind the scenes, what this is all about is shifting the shipments of oil. Now remember, Trump is looking in Alaska. He's looking to drill offshore. He's looking at the land. He's looking at what natural resources there are. There's a review going on right now. So when we start putting all this together, we can see where this is all headed. And he has to do this one step at a time, one piece of legislation at a time. And as we move forward, he will be doing more and more. And we can see at this point that in the central bank, the deep state, they are pushing to bring down the system. They want to control what is happening, because once they do this, in their minds, they think they can stop everything that is happening, because Trump will be too busy with the collapse that they created. This legislation might completely disappear. We might have an event that follows along with this. And this is part of their plan. His plan is to get all of this passed, or very close to getting passed, trying to unravel what they've done and make a move to get rid of the deep state and the central bank. And we can see there's a huge fight going on right now. But one thing is for sure, we are going to go through a period where it's going to be a huge reset. And during this period, it's going to be very difficult to get supplies, to get oil. It's going to be very difficult to get food. It's very difficult to get anything, because credit is going to freeze up. The system is going to be a complete disaster. And this is why you need to be ready for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
Alrighty, all that sounds like a bunch of fun. Alright, we have Fauchamatic off-grid. I don't know why Jen just yelled. Anyway, Fauchamatic off-grid with Permaculture Design Course for Homesteaders, PDC Day 3.
Hello, I'm Nick Fouch from Fauchmatic Off Grid, and here we are, day 3 of our permaculture design course out here at Wheaton Labs. I told you yesterday that you can come back and see my mind blown. This is what that looks like.
Day 3 of the permaculture design course was extremely information rich. So much so that we asked Tim Barker the next morning to recap a couple of concepts just for us.
I'm Tim Barker. I'm teaching the PDC here this year at Wheaton Labs. And yesterday what we went through is we talked about, we're going back over our design, and there's a thing called the Yeoman scale of permanence. Yeomans was an Australian, and basically the concept is that you start from those things that you can least affect and then work downwards to those things that you can most affect.
You have to be able to recognize the things that you can change and the things that you can't change about a particular piece of property.
The interesting thing is the most changeable in Yeoman's scale of permanence is soils, and the least changeable is climate. I mean, most people get climate, but they think, well, the soil's there, but of course we can do lots of things with soil. So it normally runs from climate, then landform, so climate being, basically Darren Doherty in Australia talks about climate being the rules of the game, and then the landform is the chessboard on which the game is played, and then you come down, then you have your water and access, and it runs right down the way through fences and finally to soils.
You can always build soil. That's relatively easy to do. So doing a soil test on a piece of property is not necessarily a good indicator of whether you're going to be able to achieve your goals on that spot.
So that's Yeoman's. He wrote 3 books. They are actually available online. I couldn't tell you where, but they are online for free with the permission of the owner to their rights, which is his son. Or, you can still buy those books. Very interesting reading, and amazing to see somebody that in the 1950s was talking about, the need to change the way that we do agriculture. And we also did just a bit of a fun exercise. You've got to get out sometimes, you can't sit. You can see people's eyes glazing over when they hit overload. You've got to get outside. So we jumped outside here, and it's just a simple exercise in the importance of making lots of connections between the various elements in the design. I got everyone to write down an element. So we had everything from rain barrels to someone had a pet composter and all these things. And what we do is we go around in a circle, and then we try and make connections by running a string between all the people. And what you see very quickly is that you make a web, and that web is supportive.
Say the rainwater harvesting from the rooftop falls over.
Oh no.
Then we've got it backed up with ponds, we've got it backed up with a windmill, we're still fine.
And you can even lose, multiple connections, and it still maintains its basic structure. Whereas if we were looking at, say, something like a monoculture kind of idea, then those webs of connectivity don't exist. You have very linear relationships, and of course you lose one or two of those relationships and the system becomes very unstable. So the more connectivity you get, then the more resilience in the system, and the more it can withstand shocks. And I mean, another term that's bandied about is anti-fragile. So resilient means that it kind of can recover. Anti-fragile means it can take a beating and take a licking and still keep ticking. So there's those two concepts.
We then talked about a really common idea in permaculture, which some people know of who aren't even really students of permaculture, which is zonation. The idea being that the things that need your attention the most often are the nearest to you. So that's a way to conserve your own energy, but also that it grabs your attention. The things that need you, that you need to do something to in order to maintain or to harvest or any number of other tasks that you may have, are nearest to your home or in your home.
In addition to all this, if we don't seem overwhelmed yet, day 3 of the permaculture design course was our day to cover the 10 principles of permaculture design, or the 10 design principles, which have already shown up in the comments of a previous video, and we'll list them again below.
So we were given a specific set of design principles. These are guiding principles as we assess our site, but also make decisions about placing elements on our site. And that is actually where the actual design work begins, is when you're taking these elements, be it a chicken or any number of other elements that you're going to try to incorporate into your homestead, and you actually start plopping them down somewhere on the land. So with those 10 design principles in mind. We were then sent out onto the landscape to look at some of the solutions here at Wheaton Labs, but also just sort of the natural landscape, and try to assess them and see how well they fit within these design principles we've been given.
Catches, catch and store energy, obtain a yield, multifunction.
Did you get make connections?
Yes. Make connections.
What else we got?
Create interactive diversity. Cycle nutrients. Accelerate succession. Use edge.
We split up into groups, and we all went different places, and we all came up with different things.
We also have catch and store. The major function of this hugel bed for catch and store is the water. We think, and also biomass. And then it's catching and stopping noise, radiation, as we talked about the different sides. It's catching a visual break from the area. It's catching wind as well, and heat. If you just look at the whole hugel
Strawberries.
bed. Strawberries.
It really was just an exercise to look critically and try to begin to recognize landforms and elements within a property and how they're interacting with each other. The evening session is what made my brain sort of ooze out of my ears. It seemed almost magical, but it's just physics. Tim Barker, who has built these things in New Zealand, went over what is known as a ram pump. And this is a way of pumping water just using the force of the water itself.
What happens is when the water actually hits, it pushes up through another non-return valve there, and it compresses the air in point 7, in that chamber number 7. And then what then happens is the water suddenly comes to a halt, it's expended all its energy, and you get a reverse pressure wave actually travels back. What that does is sucks this open, and then what happens is the water reverses and then starts to flow again. So it comes down, bang, water squirts up through that non-return valve that's number 6 into the chamber compressing the air. After that valve shuts, the number 6 valve shuts, then that compressed air slowly forces the water up pipe 8. So you get this cyclic, self-timing, absolute smash.
It's ideally done in a moving stream. So you're using the force of that moving stream in order to create enough force to actually pump it at really pretty high pressure and pretty high head distances back up the hill. And the example that he showed was incredibly successful, and it was a contraption that was built entirely by him and a group of people, and a very bare minimum of expense put into some sort of specialized fittings. None of it was super high tech. There wasn't exactly what you think of as technology involved, but it is technology. It's looking at the physics involved and harnessing the energy that's already there. And those are the kinds of solutions that are going to make it easier for us to have the things that we need and expend less energy.
Right, so we've identified alfalfa, peas, yarrow, rhubarb, clover, orchard grass, onion, iris, chamomile, kale, strawberries.
Smooth brome.
Smooth.
Is that
brome.
grass that kind of hangs off to the side?
The thing is that I'm taking away from this is permaculture is not a solution. It's a method. It's a way of thinking about things. It's not a prescriptive do these things and it'll all work. There are sort of a bag of tricks to be able to choose from, but they're only appropriate if they're going to work. So I can't help but think while I'm sitting in class where these different techniques and different things are going on my own place. But that is not the way that design works. I'm not able to just sort of pick and choose and sort of splash them all over the landscape. I really have to get through the course and be able to go through the design exercise here on the lab and understand the process before going and looking at my own property with a clear head and looking at it objectively and making good decisions. If I just pick and choose little elements and things that I like or things that I think I would, be able to do easily, that's not design. That's just a hobby. My family is awesome. I'm so glad that they're here with me. It would not be the same if I were just out here on my own, sleeping in a tent on the ground and not being able to talk about these things with the people who I'm trying to provide for with this method. So I'm really glad they're here with me. It's a family affair.
Yes, have all of those in it.
The thing is, it's more than hot enough.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Nick from Watchman Off Grid. Come on back tomorrow for day 4 of the PDC at Wheaton Labs. Thanks for watching.
Good night, Tubby. Hello. Good night.
That looks pretty cool. Pardon me. I seen Jen talking earlier about video this weekend, hoping to get the first video of her riding her bike this weekend. So with everything working as should, either tomorrow or Friday, I should have everything and on her bike, so it'd be good to go. So this would be the last of it. This will stop the axle from spinning inside the dropouts. So anyway, one more video on the way out here. Eric M. has a quick one. It's titled Footage of U.S. Air Force I think it's supposed to be ICBM, Intercept System Test.
Three, two, one, ignition.
That looks pretty freaky. So wow, interesting. That must be the one that they just did. So alrighty, folks, with that, we're gonna call it a night, and God willing, we'll be back tomorrow for Central Standard Time. Wow, sounds like they're weed eating the carpet upstairs again. Sounds like they're weed eating carpet. Anyway, we're going to get off of here, and we will see you tomorrow. God bless you all. We love you all. Be one with your spirit. We will see you then.